Chapter 275. Xiao Xie's request. Lu Changxing asked this out of curiosity about Xiao Xie's situation. Additionally, he felt that Xiao Xie seemed to be sizing him up continuously. Over the years, I have been cultivating in stillness, and now I have achieved qi refinement to perfection. This descent from the mountain is also a trial to seek an opportunity for a breakthrough, Xiao Xie said gently, her voice clear, cold, and touching. Hiss. Upon hearing these words, everyone couldn't help but express their surprise, drawing in sharp breaths. Qi refinement to perfection, searching for the chance of a breakthrough. It was clear that she was looking for the opportunity to break through to foundation establishment. Unexpectedly, in just 10 years, Xiao Xie had cultivated to qi refinement perfection and was preparing for foundation establishment. The gap between her and the others could only be described as heaven and earth. Not only were Hong Yi, Zhao Qingqing, and Han Lin surprised, but Lu Changxing was also somewhat astonished. However, Lu Changxing was more bewildered. He remembered that Xiao Xie had only a 4th grade spiritual root. A 4th grade spiritual root, even within immortal sects, couldn't possibly have such a fast cultivation speed. Could it be that Xiao Xie possesses some sort of spiritual body? Lu Changxing immediately speculated in his heart. He had a simple reason for such a guess. Xiao Xie was accepted as a disciple by a nascent soul immortal. If it were just a 4th grade spiritual root, it was highly unlikely to be favored by a nascent soul immortal to become a disciple. At most, she would attract a foundation establishment elder to accept her as a disciple. After all, within the entire Qinyan sect, nascent soul immortals are few in number. Unless it was an earth spirit root or a heavenly spiritual root with truly extraordinary talent, they would not easily accept disciples. Or could it be the practice of a certain cultivation technique? Lu Changxing thought of another reason. He, practicing the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture, knew the significant help a good cultivation method could offer to a practitioner. Without that scripture, which could refine elixir toxicity and ignore minor bottlenecks, his cultivation speed would certainly not have been so fast. Therefore, he conjectured that Xiao Xie was likely also practicing such a technique. But this technique came with side effects. He had read in ancient tomes that many powerful techniques come with side effects. Like masculine becoming feminine, drastic changes in appearance, major changes in character and temperament. Xiao Xie's current appearance, which had changed, made him suspect it was a case in point. Otherwise, how could there be such a dramatic change after just 10 years of cultivation? However, despite his speculation, this was not the kind of thing Lu Changxing would inquire about further. In the cultivation world, one's constitution and cultivation methods are exceedingly private matters. Then let me extend an early congratulations to Daoist Xiao on a successful foundation establishment. Hong Yi immediately picked up his teacup in a daze and said so. When the 6 of them first took part in the Immortal Sect's examination together, he pursued Xiao Xie with feelings of admiration and love. 13 years have passed, and he has achieved some success in the mortal world. Yet foundation establishment still seemed to him an elusive term. But now, Xiao Xie was already preparing for foundation establishment, which left him feeling particularly moved. Wishing Daoist Xiao the opportunity and success in foundation establishment. We also wish Sister Xiao success in foundation establishment. We also wish Sister Xiao success in foundation establishment. Lu Changxing, Zhao Qingqing, and Han Lin also raised their glasses to offer congratulations. Thank you. Xiao Xie's cool gaze softened somewhat as she raised her glass to drink with everyone. But her eyes involuntarily fell upon Lu Changxing once again. She discovered that whenever she looked at Lu Changxing, her heart experienced a faint, almost imperceptible flutter. If not for the operation of the supreme forgetful love technique, even Xiao Xie herself might think it was an illusion, hard-pressed to grasp this emotional flutter. To break through, do I really need to go through this emotional tribulation? Xiao Xie murmured to herself as she looked at Lu Changxing. She thought of her master's teachings. To truly cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique to a state of heartlessness and forgetfulness, one must experience emotional tribulation to comprehend the essence of the supreme forgetful love. Although she didn't know why, facing Lu Changxing, why such a flutter arose in her heart. But the spiritual mechanism within told her that her chance for a breakthrough might well lie with Lu Changxing. Thinking that her opportunity for a breakthrough fell upon Lu Changxing, requiring an emotional tribulation with him, her heart was somewhat in disarray, clueless. Over the years, she had been cultivating at Qingyun sect, with little understanding of matters of affection. She had only glimpsed such matters in books a few times. What's more, after practicing the supreme forgetful love technique, her heart had grown more indifferent, almost forgetting affection. Now, to face an emotional tribulation, she indeed didn't know how to proceed or where to start. Didn't I come down the mountain just to find this opportunity? Now that the chance is before my eyes, why should I hesitate? At that moment, Xiao Xia's conflicted heart became resolute. When she initially chose to practice the supreme forgetful love technique, she knew it was a path of no return. She understood that without the mindset of hearing the way in the morning and being ready to die in the evening, her progress in life would be halted, with no hope for the great Tao. Now that the opportunity was right before her, it was naturally not to be missed. Moreover, from the recent chat, she had also learned that Lu Changxing had numerous wives and descendants and rich experience in matters of affection. Perhaps it was for that reason that her breakthrough chance was connected to Lu Changxing. Soon after, Xiao Xia gradually began to speak and joined in on some of the group's topics of conversation. Daoist Hong, Daoist Lu, you who cultivate within the turmoil of the mortal world and tainted with the breath of mortal concerns, it may affect your cultivation. However, if you temper your purity amidst the mortal world, it will assist in cultivation, mindset, and overcoming bottlenecks. When the conversation turned to cultivation, Xiao Xia spoke out, providing a few suggestions on their cultivation. She often had guidance from her nascent soul master and practiced the supreme forgetful love technique, which focuses immensely on mindset, hence she had many insights into this matter. Thank you for the guidance, Daoist Xiao, Hong Yi said, visibly moved by the honor. Thank you for the guidance, Daoist Xiao. Chapter 276, Xiao Xia's request _4 Lu Changxing also bowed slightly, roughly understanding that this concept was not far off from his own initial thoughts. It's not about guidance, just a few suggestions, he said. Although Xiao Xia's visage was cold and detached, like a fairy from the moon palace above the 9 heavens, her words carried no arrogance and were very gentle. Thus, with Xiao Xia's participation, the atmosphere of the conversation became even more harmonious. Especially in the aspect of cultivation, Xiao Xia, a fairy who had achieved perfection in qi refinement, often illuminated the path for others with just a few words, leading to great epiphanies and gains. This also made Lu Changxing realize the importance of companionship within wealth, companionship, law, and land. In the lengthy process of cultivation, nearly everyone would face some difficulties and doubts. If one were to work in isolation, it would be hard to get far. But with a mentor and a group of like-minded Daoist friends to exchange thoughts with, things would be much better. During the conversation, Xiao Xia also occasionally asked Lu Changxing about some matters and questions of everyday life. This was also her reason for engaging in the conversation and chat. From Lu Changxing, she saw the opportunity for her own breakthrough. However, she couldn't directly bring up emotional tribulations or matters of cultivation. She needed to observe and understand Lu Changxing's situation first. After all, emotional tribulations could harm oneself and others if not handled well, and affect others. Although her emotions had gradually become indifferent, she wouldn't become cold-hearted just for the sake of cultivation. Lu Changxing was somewhat surprised by this concern. But hearing that Xiao Xia's descent from the mountain was mainly for mortal heart tempering, he didn't mind. After all, they had all experienced many worldly affairs. However, Xiao Xia and her 2 companions had always been cultivating in immortal sects and rarely dealt with mundane chores. There is no feast that doesn't come to an end in this world. Seeing that the sun was setting, everyone concluded the gathering and bid each other farewell. Zhao Qingqing mentioned that she had a mission to do. And Han Lin was heading home to visit his relatives. Lu Daoist, I have descended the mountain to wander the secular world in search of opportunities, she said. But I am not very familiar with many worldly and cultivation world matters, and I have no specific destination in mind. May I ask you to take me with you for a while, if possible? she asked. Before departing, Xiao Xie didn't leave immediately but turned to Lu Changxing and spoke. She was clad in white robes purer than snow, her complexion cold and peerless, like the bright moon in the sky, calm and indifferent, with an aura of otherworldliness. Lu Changxing was slightly taken aback upon hearing this. However, from their recent conversation, he knew that Xiao Xie's descent was from mortal heart tempering and to break through foundation establishment. Such a request didn't seem abrupt to him. I usually just travel between Rui Prefecture, Qingzhou Mountain, and the marketplace. If Daoist Xiao temporarily has no destination, I am certainly willing to take her along for the journey, Lu Changxing said after a moment's consideration. As a disciple of an immortal sect and moreover, a disciple of a nascent soul immortal, Lu Changxing naturally wished to maintain a good relationship. Just taking her along for a part of his journey, as far as he was concerned, was not a troublesome matter, so he agreed without hesitation. Whether or not it bore fruit, he would still be owed a favor by her. The favor of a disciple of a nascent soul immortal from an immortal sect also counted as a connection and backing. Especially since his Qingzhou Mountain was under the jurisdiction of the Qingyun sect. Thank you, Lu Daoist, Xiao Xie said, her cool eyes revealing a hint of warmth, like a night blooming Sirius unfolding. I've always been in the secular world and have some understanding of the cultivation world. Why didn't you ask me? Hong Yi remained silent on the side but couldn't help feeling a tinge of sourness in his heart. Chapter 277, My Cultivation with the Fairy. _1 Under the envious gaze of Hong Yi, Lu Changxing left with Xiao Xie. I wonder how Daoist Xiao plans to travel on this trip. Lu Changxing asked Xiao Xie. Since he had agreed, he naturally wouldn't just let the other stay at his home or in the marketplace without caring for her. He ought to show some hospitality as a host. To travel in all directions, observe all life, amidst the tumult of the mortal world. Xiao Xie said softly. Her words were not entirely empty. Indeed, to cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique truly required such experiences. However, she had skipped this step by using the red dust elixir. But the red dust elixir was, after all, an external object and had not brought her mind to a state of complete perfection. All life, the chaos of the mortal world. Lu Changxing nodded thoughtfully. He felt that the cultivation technique practiced by the other must be no simple matter. After all, ordinary cultivation techniques like the returning origin technique and Changchun technique have no requirements in terms of mental state. Only cultivation techniques of the exquisite level and above have such requirements. This is also why the more advanced the cultivation technique, the harder it is to practice and the higher its threshold. I wonder if Daoist Lu has any suggestions. Xiao Xie asked with a calm and clear expression. Lu has no particularly good suggestions, but in the coming days, I can accompany Daoist Xiao to walk and see this mundane world. Later, we can also go to the cultivation marketplace for a visit. If Daoist Xiao wishes to hunt demon beasts or explore some cave heaven's secret realms, I am of too low a cultivation level to be of help, Lu Changxing said. In the cultivation world, many people facing bottlenecks choose to hunt demon beasts or explore secret realms. By tempering themselves between life and death, comprehending the great terror within it, and stimulating their potential, they seek to break through their limitations. Although Xiao Xie did not share this situation, he still had to say this up front. Thank you for the trouble, Daoist Lu, Xiao Xie said, nodding slightly. Then, she looked toward Lu Changxing and asked, as ripples crossed her calm eyes, Daoist Lu, your youthful appearance, is it because you practice wood or water elemental cultivation techniques? She was still unaware of why her heart fluttered in front of Lu Changxing, prompting the imperceptible love technique to activate automatically. But looking at Lu Changxing's handsome and youthful features, she couldn't help but wonder if it was related to the cultivation technique he practiced. The change in Lu Changxing's appearance and temperament was indeed dramatic. 13 years had passed. She had almost forgotten what Lu Changxing used to look like. Yet she faintly remembered that he was once unremarkable in a crowd. But now, even by her standards, she had to admit that Lu Changxing was incredibly handsome. Not just handsome. His skin, physique, and temperament were all in perfect harmony, beyond reproach. One would feel at ease and a natural fondness looking at him. Xiao Xie naturally knew that many wood and water elemental cultivation techniques included effects that preserved youth and beauty. But in the qi refinement realm, ordinary cultivation techniques absolutely could not achieve the effect that Lu Changxing had. Indeed, I am but a 9th grade spiritual root, so I chose to practice a wood elemental life-nourishing cultivation technique. As for preserving youth, I have also taken some elixir medicines for that purpose, Lu Changxing said, without a blink or a quickened heartbeat. He had become quite adept at such talk. And because he cultivated the immortal beauty technique and was affected by the peach blossom goo, his appearance and temperament did indeed seem like someone who practiced wood elemental techniques for preserving beauty. However, Xiao Xie's inquiry also made him more vigilant. He wondered if the fairy Shiyu could see something in him. After all, he was very aware of the changes in his own appearance and aura. If someone was observant enough, they might notice something. Therefore, he always used a treasure to conceal this aura in his daily life. Otherwise, with many years of cultivating the immortal beauty technique and the effects of the peach blossom goo, just walking down the street would be enough to captivate mortal women with a single glance. It even had a considerable effect on cultivators. I had no idea Daoist Lu was so concerned with his appearance, Xiao Xie said with a slight nod and a tinge of teasing in her voice. She realized that when she was with Lu Changxing, her state of mind was no longer as undisturbed as usual, like the 9 heavens bright moon, free of ripples. This made her aware that she could use this to temper her own mindset. Since we are cultivating immortality, we should indeed have the appearance of cultivators. After all, with my talents and abilities, I have no hope for the great Tao in this lifetime, so I can only focus on such things, Lu Changxing said casually. In the path of cultivation, what one fears is the loss of confidence. If Daoist Lu retains a thread of belief, there will surely be a glimmer of hope, Xiao Xie said to Lu Changxing. I have taken your lesson to heart, Lu Changxing said courteously with a slight bow, acknowledging her good intentions without being stubborn about it. Then the two walked and talked together as they approached the Lu family mansion. Daddy. In front of the mansion doors, Lu Shila sat on a small stool, eating a candied haw. Seeing Lu Changxing return, she immediately got up and excitedly shouted. Then, the little girl's gaze shifted to Xiao Xie and she asked, Daddy, is this the new auntie? Fairy auntie, hello, my name is Lu Shila, the little girl said, looking adorably at Xiao Xie with her crisp voice. Ahem, this is Daddy's friend, you can call her Aunt Shiyu, Lu Changxing said, coughing lightly after hearing his daughter's words. He didn't blame the child for speaking out of turn. Then he turned to Xiao Xie and said, Please do not take offense, Daoist Xiao. No worries, your daughter is very cute, Xiao Xie shook her head slightly. Despite her usually cold and proud expression, her eyes and voice were gentle. Gracefully smoothing her moon-white dress, she crouched down to admire Lu Xiao's charming stance and asked softly, Little sister, how old are you this year? Chapter 278, My Cultivation with the Fairy. I'm 10 years old this year. Lu Shila bit off half of her candied hawthorn on a stick in one bite. Then she offered it to Xiao Xie. Auntie Shiyu, Daddy said when guests come over, we should treat them well, so I want to treat you to candied hawthorn. Xiao Xie was slightly taken aback. She couldn't help but think back to her own childhood. Once upon a time, she, like the little girl in front of her, had a lively face and loved to eat candied hawthorn. Her eyes curved into a smile, and a gentle look appeared on her face. She opened her enticing, rosy lips and took a bite from the half-red fruit on the little girl's stick. Really delicious. Xiao Xie touched Lu Xiao's head and said, her quiet state of mind rippling slightly. This reinforced her certainty that Lu Changxing was her chance to break through delusions and advance her state of mind. A glowing, moon-white jade pendant appeared in her hand, which she handed to Lu Shila. This is a gift from your auntie. Lu Shila did not accept it immediately but looked toward her father. Since it's a gift from auntie, you should keep it, Lu Changxing spoke. He could tell that this was not an ordinary jade pendant, it was a spirit jade. As for its value, he couldn't discern it at a glance. But since it was for his child, he didn't decline it. He also knew that by giving a gift to his child, Xiao Xie was expressing her gratitude for bothering him. "Thank you, Auntie Xiao." The little girl gleefully accepted the jade pendant. She saw that the jade pendant was translucent and sparkling, very pretty, and she liked it very much. She then talked to Xiao Xie even more warmly, asking if Xiao Xie had eaten and if she would like to go out and play. In the face of the little girl's enthusiasm, Xiao Xie did not decline and went with the flow. Seeing this, Lu Changxing didn't say anything. He just let his daughter take her out for a chat and a walk. What exactly is the situation with this Xiao Daoist friend? Watching Lu Shila taking Xiao Xie away, Lu Changxing narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself. From their conversation along the way, he was almost certain that there was something off about Xiao Xie. Asking him for company was definitely not as simple as she claimed, just wandering the mortal world with no particular destination in mind. She must have some kind of purpose in mind concerning him. He believed that Xiao Xie's descent from the mountain was indeed to wander the world, tempering her heart in the mortal realm, looking for an opportunity to break through. But to say she had no destination and asked him for company felt far-fetched to Lu Changxing. After all, as a disciple of a nascent soul immortal from the Qingyun sect, how could she have no destination when going out for training experiences? She would definitely have had someone plan her journey, or even have company. Moreover, he felt that Hong Yi might be more suitable than himself for this kind of wandering temperament. This reason felt strange to Lu Changxing but was, at most, passable. But along the way, Lu Changxing had been observing Xiao Xie closely. He noticed that Xiao Xie's gaze often lingered on him. And he keenly perceived that her eyes and demeanor were changing. This change was subtle, and he couldn't describe it exactly. If he had to say, it was that she was not so cold, not so indifferent anymore. Today, when he and Hong Yi went to meet the three of them, he saw Xiao Xie's first glance and noticed the cool, holy aura about her. Like a fairy from the heavens, calm and indifferent, unapproachable. It was still the case when they arrived at Rui Building. Only after a long conversation did Xiao Xie's indifference gradually recede a bit. At that moment, Lu Changxing realized that Xiao Xie was sizing him up but didn't think too much of it. After she proposed that he accompany her, Lu Changxing became more cautious, so all along the way, by observing, he could confirm that Xiao Xie must have some purpose for him. Wait a minute, when she's with me, her expressions and attitudes change. Could this be? Lu Changxing's mouth twitched. He suddenly felt like it might be akin to a goddess showing interest in someone, only then letting go of her usual aloofness. Although I'm quite charming now, it couldn't be this easy, Lu Changxing stroked his chin. He was someone with a fair sense of self-awareness. He knew well that his charisma could be quite lethal to the opposite sex. But it was unlikely to make Xiao Xie, a fairy of her stature, fall head over heels and take the initiative to throw herself at him. Could it be? A flash of enlightenment struck Lu Changxing's mind. His mental spirit stirred, tuning into the peach blossom goo spiritual essence within his forehead. He wanted to see if this thing was once again stirring up romantic fortunes for him. After all, his relationship with Xiao Xie was nothing extraordinary. Now that she had come down to wander the mortal realm, with such an unusual behavior, he couldn't help but speculate if romantic fortune was at play. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A faint activity arose from the peach blossom goo between his brows, conveying a sense of awareness. As if to tell Lu Changxing, it was indeed about romantic fortune. Good heavens! Receiving this feedback from the peach blossom goo, Lu Changxing inwardly exclaimed in surprise. Understanding that Xiao Xie's abnormal behavior was indeed related to romantic fortune, he was at a loss for words for a moment. But it also eased his mind quite a bit. Knowing that Xiao Xie's request to accompany him carried no ill intent, no ulterior motive. Nevertheless, this romantic fortune is not so easy to deal with. Lu Changxing took a deep breath and exhaled softly. To say he harbored no thoughts about Xiao Xie would be impossible. After all, this fairy Xiao was not only exquisitely beautiful but also possessed a fourth-grade spiritual root. She even had some kind of spiritual body. If she were just an ordinary inner sect disciple of the Qingyun sect, that would be one thing, with some hope of a connection. But she wasn't just any disciple from the immortal sects. She was a disciple of a nascent soul immortal. With such status and identity, if he were to impregnate her and have children, chances are it would bring trouble. After all, being accepted as a disciple by a nascent soul immortal implies exceptional talent, and she would be entrusted with high expectations by the immortal sects, fully devoted to her cultivation. Chapter 279, My Cultivation with the Fairy. If I end up having several children, that would delay the prime of my early years. Qingyun sect might, for the sake of letting their disciples focus on cultivation and sever worldly ties, just sever me instead. By then, what was supposed to be a streak of romantic luck would turn into a calamity. So Lu Changxing was very clear in his heart that a woman like Xiao Xie, he currently could not resist. Meanwhile, under the guidance of Lu Shila, Xiao Xie met the other wives, concubines, and children of Lu Changxing. She knew that Lu Changxing had married numerous wives and concubines, and had many children. But when she actually saw so many wives and children all at once, she still felt a bit surprised. However, she didn't know that these 20-plus children were only a small part. After separating from Lu Changxing and spending some time chatting and playing with Lu Shila and a few children, Xiao Xie found her mindset gradually returning to tranquility and indifference. She reverted to her usual state of the supreme forgetful love technique. Is it really so? Xiao Xie murmured to herself, her eyes clear as water, detached and calm as she looked into the distance. She was almost certain that only Lu Changxing could help her see through illusions and break through to the next realm. As for how to see through them, she had some idea in her mind. When she was by Lu Changxing's side, her mental state was affected, causing the supreme forgetful love technique to operate automatically. If she could be unaffected in any way, keeping her heart tranquil and detached no matter what, she thought that would be seeing through the illusions and achieving a great state of mind. However, she still needed to continue to confirm this. In this manner, Xiao Xie stayed at the Lu residence. Lu Changxing had planned to return to Qingzhou Mountain after the gathering, but due to Xiao Xie's presence, he changed his plans. He spent his time, taking Xiao Xie to wander around Rui Prefecture, observing the so-called afflictions of life and the chaos of the red dust. Lu Changxing himself didn't know what these afflictions and chaos specifically entailed. And Xiao Xie couldn't explain clearly either. So, considering that she came from a literary family and had entered Qingyun sect for cultivation at the age of 15, he decided to show her some of the suffering of life, the hardships of the lower class, like the women who were forced into brothels. The roadside vendors in the streets and alleys, the roughnecks, the beggars with disabilities. The dock workers who labored in hard and toilsome jobs. The tea houses, the wine lodges, the restaurants, patrons of all different stripes. The gangs of the Jianghu, killing and fighting over interests. One day, Lu Changxing took Xiao Xie to a village in Rui Prefecture. It was a very poor and backward village. Yellow earth facing the sky, the mud roads pitted and uneven. Fields lined the sides of the road. The crops in the fields had been completely harvested. But one could still see some emaciated and frail farmers in ragged clothing, with children, carrying baskets on their backs, picking up the grains missed during the harvest in the fields. Among them were some women who had just given birth, carrying infants who were crying for food, with faces of sheer exhaustion. When they saw Lu Changxing and Xiao Xie, fear and humility showed in their eyes, with stiff, ingratiating smiles. Sigh. Lu Changxing sighed deeply at the sight. He did not know how Xiao Xie's state of mind had been these days. But the hardships of this world genuinely made him feel a heavy heart. He felt somewhat relieved, apprehensive, and panicked. Fortunate to possess a spiritual root, he had initially obtained a celestial fate. He was able to go to Qingyun sect to participate in the Immortal sect's examination. Otherwise, a peasant boy like him, even if he awakened his memories and had a system, would still face great difficulties. It would take an unknown amount of time, energy, and effort to struggle up from this lowly position. Xiao Daoist, have you gained anything in these past few days? Lu Changsheng sighed lightly and asked Xiaoxia. Seeing all the hardships made him cherish his current life even more and gave him the motivation to keep striving. All living beings suffer, Xiaoxia said softly. These days, she had seen much with Lu Changsheng, and her heart was deeply touched, reaping no small gains. But she could feel that these were not greatly helpful for her own breakthrough. The main focus was still on Lu Changsheng. However, through the days of being together, Xiaoxia's heart had also sunk into the influence of Lu Changsheng. Whenever they came into close contact, Xiaoxia felt herself enveloped in a spring breeze that swayed her mental spirit, prompting the supreme forgetful love technique to activate. But she also realized that just this was not enough, not sufficient for her to see through illusion, for her mental state to break through. She knew in her heart that she needed to go further with Lu Changsheng. Only by experiencing the so-called love trial could she truly refine her mental state, achieve great enlightenment, and see through illusion with the supreme forgetful love. Lu Daoist has worked hard these past few days, Xiaoxia looked at Lu Changsheng and said. Her voice was no longer so cold, but much gentler. Soon after, the two returned to Rui Prefecture to prepare for their visit to the cultivation marketplace the next day. Night fell. Because they were leaving tomorrow, Lu Changsheng naturally spent a good time with his wives and concubines. Meanwhile, Xiaoxia sat cross-legged in her room. Her mind was in turmoil, she couldn't fall asleep or enter a state of cultivation. Love trial. Xiaoxia understood that she had been refining her mental state and seeing through illusion with the help of Lu Changsheng. Yet, at the same time, these days had also made her troubled by the cage that was Lu Changsheng. Although her mental state had improved, she had sunk deeper and had to rely on the love trial for great enlightenment. She operated the supreme forgetful love technique and suppressed her distracting thoughts. She stepped out of her room, her skirt fluttering, landing on the roof, and quietly gazed at the bright moon in the sky. The moonlight spilled over her, bathing her moon-white dress and flawless body, making her even more immaculate and noble, like the Guanghan fairy in the Moon Palace. The gentle night breeze lifted a corner of the moon-white dress, revealing the fairy's smooth, round legs, like ivory-white jade without an ounce of excess flesh, naturally perfect, unrivaled in grace and beauty. The wind also lifted the fairy's black hair. Strands of black hair and the moon-white dress swayed in the wind, dancing with the breeze, reflecting the owner's current mood and state of mind. Her bright, moon-like eyes gazed absently at a courtyard in the residence. Phew! Xiaoxia took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. She knew that without a mental realization, she would never be able to refine the supreme forgetful love technique. Immediately, a look of determination appeared in her eyes as she floated towards Lu Changsheng's courtyard. She was ready to tell him directly that she needed to experience the love trial to completely see through illusion. And not just to casually observe the myriad aspects of the world, amid the muddled and tumultuous mortal life. Chapter 280, Xiaoxia, so this is the love tribulation. _1 above the pitch-black night sky, a silver moon hung high. Its faint moonlight cascaded onto the pavilions and towers of the Lu family estate, as if draping them in a layer of silver gauze. The entire Lu family estate was engulfed in darkness and silence, the only exception was a courtyard within the inner house, still brightly lit. In the glow of frost-like radiance, a figure clad in white, resembling the celestial fairy of the bright moon above, drifted towards this courtyard, her sashes fluttering in the night breeze. Before even alighting, Xiaoxiu, like the Guanghan fairy of the Moon Palace, suddenly heard a plaintive sound, sorrowful yet enchanting, filled with 1,000 graces. The sound caused Xiaoxiu's exquisite features to slightly startle, and her heartbeat suddenly accelerated. This hastened pulse speeded the practice of her supreme forgetful love technique. What sound is this? Xiaoxiu furrowed her pretty brows, somewhat perplexed in her heart. Why did such a simple sound cause such a throb within her? The supreme forgetful love technique ran its course, suppressing this inexplicable emotional pulse. She then followed the sound into a room within the courtyard. The shadows reflected by the window allowed her to instantaneously guess what was happening inside. This made her heart start thumping again. She realized her behavior was inappropriate. Her arrival was ill-timed. But a tremor of excitement surged within her, a tantalizing sensation, compelling her to channel a sliver of spiritual power into her beautiful eyes and peer through the window. Inside the chamber, she saw several Lu family ladies she had met during the day with Lu Changxing. In an instant, Xiao Shiyu felt as if struck by lightning. Her stunning face instantly flushed with crimson, almost letting out an alarmed cry. This single glance brought an unprecedented and intense impact to Xiao Shiyu. The Tao heart that had just been calmed by the supreme forgetful love technique exploded at this moment. Her Tao heart shuddered, and the supreme forgetful love technique nearly failed, causing her delicate body to momentarily weaken. At the age of 15, she had entered the immortal sex, embarking on a single-minded path of cultivation. Though she had heard of the matters between men and women, and had read some relevant books, she was still naively ignorant. Such scenes were foreign to her. Let alone such stimulating and shocking imagery. Under the moonlight, Xiao Shiyu's skin shone like luminous jade, reflecting with the cool moonlight. Her serene and holy visage, usually as cool as the 9 heavens' bright moon, was now flushed like the rosy dawn, a beauty beyond compare. Her emotions rose and fell tumultuously, leaving her dazed and at a loss. Could this be the emotional trial to endure? Xiao Shiyu bit her lip lightly, the supreme forgetful love technique running at full speed, suppressing the roaring tides within her heart. Just now, the shock of the imagery she witnessed caused her heart to accelerate and her body to go weak. But simultaneously, the supreme forgetful love technique also spun wildly. The robust and impermeable barrier at her bottleneck seemed to subtly loosen at this moment. She faintly realized what her emotional trial was. Before this, she had only known that she must endure an emotional trial. That trial fell upon Lu Changxing. Lu Changxing was the opportunity for her breakthrough. But as for the specifics of the emotional trial, she herself was unclear. Because the word emotion is too broad. It could be familial love, friendship, romantic love, or the affection between a man and a woman. And each of these emotions can be divided into many types. In this moment, she vaguely understood. It was about the emotions between a man and a woman. The emotions that include desire between a man and a woman. What she needed to do was suppress emotions, forget desires. Thus, to know emotions yet forget them, to have emotions yet remain detached. Upon realizing her emotional trial, Xiao Shiyu's eyes, as pure as the bright moon, flickered indecisively, trembling slightly. Not only was her heart in disarray, but her mind was also in chaos, feeling lost and dazed. And at the same time, inside the courtyard room, the diligently busy Lu Changxing acutely sensed a spying presence. He frowned slightly. Although his estate lacked a great formation for protection, there were protectors patrolling the outer estate, and a 9 netherhound guarding the inner estate. In the mortal world, it would be extremely difficult for any master to infiltrate. His gaze pierced through the doors and windows, looking outside. He immediately spotted a white silhouette as ethereal as a fairy. Xiao Shiyu? Lu Changxing looked at the white silhouette, somewhat surprised. He wondered what business the fairy, Shiyu, could have with him in the dead of night. Not cultivating or sleeping at night, did she come to chat or share her heart? However, seeing that the eavesdropper was Xiao Shiyu, not some malevolent figure, Lu Changxing couldn't help but feel reassured. Yet this moment of inaction caused his wife, Lu Lanshu, to suddenly feel abandoned. Her elegant features from the daytime, now flush and bewitching, looked back at her husband. Her half-lidded eyes brimming with allure, her voice soft and sultry, she asked, "My lord, what is it?" The 3 other wives also turned their gaze towards Lu Changxing. "It's nothing." Lu Changxing, noting Xiao Shiyu hurriedly departing as soon as he looked out, didn't dwell on it further. Presumably, Xiao Shiyu had some urgent matter with him to come at such a late hour, thus stumbling upon such a scene. Besides, he couldn't very well stop what he was doing now to go ask Xiao Shiyu what the matter was, right? Meanwhile, Xiao Shiyu, amidst her inner turmoil, sensed the gaze of Lu Changxing upon her. Even though she cultivated the supreme forgetful love technique and possessed a pure nature, unfamiliar with worldly affairs. In such a situation, her heart couldn't help but flutter. Almost as if fleeing, she left the courtyard and floated back to her own. Returning to her room, Xiaoxiu ran the supreme forgetful love technique swiftly, allowing her exquisite complexion to gradually return to its aloof coolness. But recalling that scene, she still felt a trembling deep within her soul, her delicate body burning with heat. So this is my emotional trial. No wonder I have always been unable to perfect the supreme forgetful love technique. My state of mind is still far from sufficient. Chapter 281, Xiaoxia, so this is the love tribulation. Xiaoxia murmured to herself. Without realizing it, she reached out to touch her cheek, which was slightly warm. She didn't even know what had just happened to herself. Was she bewitched? She was clearly aware of what Lu Changxing was doing. And yet, she still stole a glance. If I could completely control and suppress this emotion, perhaps that would be the time when my state of mind reaches completion and I can see through illusions. As she practiced the supreme forgetful love technique, Xiaoxia's emotions gradually stabilized. But the thought of having to completely control these emotions made Xiaoxia sigh quietly. She looked up at the bright moon hanging in the night sky through her window. Somehow, the scene she had just witnessed appeared again before her eyes. It caused her freshly calmed heart to flutter slightly. Xiaoxia did not dispel the embarrassing image from her mind. Instead, she chose to confront it directly. And even tried to imagine herself in it. Because, for her, it was also a way to temper her state of mind. If she couldn't even control such emotions, how could she talk about transcending the emotional tribulation and seeing through illusions? It was unclear how much time had passed. Xiaoxia found she could now look at the scene without any perturbation. Face the image that challenged her Tao heart. By then, daylight had come. Xiaoxia stood up, straightened her moon-white dress, and applied a cleansing technique to herself. She prepared to find Lu Changxing and have a frank discussion, to reveal the issues of the emotional tribulation. And explain last night's events. Lu Daoist. Xiaoxia went to the front courtyard and found Lu Changxing. Because of last night's events, the sight of Lu Changxing caused a faint ripple in her heart. However, after a whole night of tempering her state of mind, she didn't show any unusual signs. Xiao Daoist, let's have breakfast before setting off, Lu Changxing said casually. He didn't bring up last night's events. After all, it was somewhat awkward to discuss such matters. The best approach was to act as if nothing had happened. It's not about that. I have something to discuss with Lu Daoist, Xiaoxia said, shaking her head slightly and speaking earnestly. Seeing her serious expression, Lu Changxing knew she must have some important matter to discuss. Perhaps this was also why she came looking for him last night. Lu Changxing immediately escorted Xiaoxia to a secluded side hall. He inquired, may I know what Xiao Daoist would like to discuss? Lu Daoist must have noticed a clear change in me compared to 10 years ago, Xiaoxia said softly, looking at Lu Changxing. Lu Changxing nodded. He was unsure as to why Xiaoxia was suddenly broaching this subject. It's because of the cultivation technique I have been practicing, Xiaoxia continued. Having spent the last few days with Lu Changxing, experiencing life lessons and observing the lives of mortals, she had been observing him. Through her observation, Lu Changxing had passed her tests. That's why she thought of revealing the matters of the emotional tribulation. If she was to reveal the tribulation, she needed to explain the whole context. When Lu Changxing heard this, he thought to himself, as expected. As he had suspected, Xiaoxia's changes were due to the practice of a particular cultivation technique. But he still didn't know why Xiaoxia was mentioning this to him. Not waiting for Lu Changxing to speak, Xiaoxia continued, the cultivation technique I'm practicing is called the Supreme Forgetful Love Technique. To fully master this technique, one must experience the trials of the mortal world, understand grief and joy, separation and union, to comprehend the essence of supreme forgetfulness. My master crafted elixir medicines for me to skip this step and master the technique. But my state of mind still has flaws, and I find it difficult to break through. Xiao Xie said slowly, maintaining an indifferent expression and a calm demeanor. Supreme Forgetful Love Technique? Lu Changxing nodded slightly. He knew that profound techniques like these have such requirements, therefore, they are very difficult to practice. Like the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture he practiced, there were requirements for one's state of mind. However, he was an exception, having a shortcut to overlook this aspect. My state of mind is incomplete, and I gradually realized that I must overcome the emotional tribulation to break through the illusion and reach the fulfillment of my state of mind. My main purpose for descending the mountain is to undergo this emotional tribulation. And when I met Lu Daoist, I sensed an opportunity for a breakthrough from you. The emotional tribulation is likely related to Lu Daoist. That's why I asked Lu Daoist to accompany me on part of my journey. Xiao Xie spoke with a cool countenance and a tranquil tone. Emotional tribulation, Lu Changxing uttered, his heart suddenly enlightened upon hearing this. Before, he only knew that Xiao Xie was close to him and asked him to accompany her for a part of her journey because of the peach blossom goo. But as for the specifics, he had no idea. Now, hearing Xiao Xie's words, he suddenly understood. The so-called emotional tribulation must involve experiencing matters of affection. Xiao Xie left the mountain, intending to experience emotions to overcome her bottleneck. But just after meeting him, the peach blossom goo made these emotions fall upon him. Xiao Xie had also realized this, which is why she had been observing and sizing him up continuously at the Rui Tower. And she took the initiative to say that she was planning to travel without a particular destination in mind and asked him to accompany her. The goal was to try to overcome her emotional tribulation through him and thus make a breakthrough. Now that she was being upfront, she likely wanted him to do something. As a good friend, helping Xiao Daoist with her troubles is naturally my unquestionable duty. I'm not sure how Xiao Daoist intends to undergo this emotional tribulation, but if I can be of help, Lu would naturally help. Since the other party had put it that way, Lu Changxing felt it would not be good to refuse and thus spoke. As for this matter of emotional tribulation, I am not very clear about it myself. Originally, when I was beside Lu Daoist, my thoughts would become disordered, and my cultivation technique would operate automatically. Therefore, I would like to ask Lu Daoist to cooperate with me in an attempt, but last night, Xiao Xie, with a cold expression, seemed as ethereal as a fairy from the Moon Palace, her demeanor supremely pure and holy as she explained her situation. After all, when she decided to practice the Supreme Forgetful Love technique, she possessed the resolve to ask about the way in the morning and be prepared to die in the evening, determination. Now that the way lay in front of her, she naturally wouldn't be coy like a young girl. After hearing Xiao Xie's words, Lu Changxing was momentarily stunned. Although he had thoughts about Xiao Xie, he had suppressed these ideas for the time being due to her status and identity. But what she was talking about now, this undergoing of emotional tribulation, was entirely a proactive offering. In such a situation, saying he would cooperate was possible, and maybe with some deeper persuasion, he could even get Xiao Xie to have a child with him before she returned to Qinyan sect. But Lu Changxing did not harbor these thoughts. The identity of a nascent soul immortal disciple made him apprehensive. Regarding this matter of emotional tribulation, Lu also has some views, feeling that it may not necessarily require my involvement. Xiao Daoist can do this, Lu Changxing pondered for a moment before speaking tactfully. If it were anyone else offering such an opportunity, he, Lu's someone, would naturally not refuse. But Xiao Xie's status and identity were something he couldn't afford to provoke. Acting on it would not bring him much advantage, and it was likely to cause him endless embarrassment. Therefore, if she could resolve this emotional tribulation on her own, owing him a favor would be ideal. Is that really possible? Xiao Xie, after a moment of silence upon hearing Lu Changxing's words, asked. Evidently, her heart was not entirely calm either. After all, her Supreme Forgetful Love technique would be effected in front of Lu Changxing. She couldn't achieve a state of absolute detachment. Xiao Daoist can give it a try. Lu Changxing handed her a soft cushioned meditation mat. Immediately, the plan for both to tour the marketplace was revised. Inside the room, Xiao Xie, with a cold countenance, sat cross-legged on a pink meditation mat. Suddenly her beautiful brows furrowed slightly. Then, on her cold and holy face, a hint of blush appeared, rendering her stunningly beautiful. The blush spread at a visible pace. It made her beautiful face flushed like the rosy clouds, her red lips slightly parted, and her breathing somewhat hurried. After a few breaths, the blush spread from her cheeks to her ears, making her delicate and lovely ears thoroughly red, and her snow-white, graceful neck also gradually reddened. The perfect and delicate body inside the fairy's moon-white dress also started to tremble slightly. The embroidered shoes covering her round and petite jade feet trembled lightly, restless and uneasy. A moment later, a suppressed heavenly sound emanated from the fairy's throat, causing her to furrow her brows in pain, then look befuddled, her red lips parted, as she collapsed to the ground. Huff! 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 Xiao Xie's bewitching eyes looked confusedly at the eaves, carefully observing the changes in her heart. In a daze, she realized the state of her heart at that moment, in that overwhelming, dreamlike instance, was somewhat similar to last night when she witnessed the scene that impacted her Tao heart. To break through illusions, one must control these emotions. Xiao Xie murmured to herself. She could feel that this method indeed helped her, bringing a hint of ease to her heart. It felt as if much of the irritability and stray thoughts regarding her cultivation breakthrough had diminished. Even her realm seemed to have loosened a bit. But it's still not enough. Xiao Xie operated her supreme forgetful love technique, her eyes cold and calm as she murmured to herself. Propping up her body with her fair arms, she straightened her dress, then Xiao Xie pushed open the room door and went out to find Lu Changxing. Chapter 282, Yun Wanshang, Could Something Have Happened to Shiyu? _1 Lu Changxing hadn't expected Xiao Xie to return to seek him out so soon. Looking at Xiao Xie in front of him, wearing a moon-white long dress with delicate features and an exceptionally ethereal and cool demeanor, Lu Changxing couldn't help feeling somewhat guilty. After all, looking back on it now, his idea seemed a bit off. Who would ask someone to cultivate like that? However, thinking about the unearthly beauty standing before him, as if she were a fairy from the Guanghan Moon Palace embarking on cultivation trials as he had suggested, a faint fire of irritation began to smolder in Lu Changsheng's dantian. Xiao Daoist, is the method I proposed effective? Lu Changxing gathered his mental spirit, calmed his restless mind, and asked earnestly. Yes, Xiao Xie replied softly. Her cold and succinct words were filled with temptation, stirring the imagination. If it's been of any help to you, that's good, Lu Changxing exhaled lightly. Although he felt a little disappointed, he had at least managed to deal with the troublesome matter concerning Xiao Xie. After all, if he were to actually intervene, the loss would outweigh the gain, and it would easily cause trouble. However, Shiyu can feel that this effect is not enough to break through the bottleneck, so I will still need Lu Daoist's help. Xiao Xie's chest heaved slightly, and she spoke with her lips barely parting. A ripple appeared in her cool and calm eyes. Clearly, her heart was not as tranquil as her outward appearance suggested. After all, the supreme forgetful love technique is not about being truly without emotion, but about being so immersed in the great Tao that one remains unaffected by emotions and desires. Furthermore, she had not yet cultivated to such a level. Upon hearing this, Lu Changsheng's mouth twitched. He had not expected Xiao Xie to still require his assistance. This meant that what he had proposed had some effect, but it was not sufficient. He did not speak. It went without saying, he could help, but the benefits did not balance out the costs. More loss than gain. Xiao Xie noticed the hesitation in Lu Changxing. Although inexperienced in worldly affairs, she wasn't entirely naive. She knew that her request made Lu Changxing apprehensive, probably because he was worried that such a matter would bring him trouble. Lu Daoist, Shiyu knows this matter is making it difficult for you. If Lu Daoist is willing to help, Shiyu would be immensely grateful and ready to offer thanks, or if Lu Daoist has any requirements, please feel free to make them. Also, Shiyu is willing to make a Dao heart vow that, regardless of the outcome of this emotional trial, success or failure, I will not involve or blame Lu Daoist, All consequences will be borne by Shiyu alone, so Lu Daoist can rest assured, Xiao Xie said. Her eyes locked onto Lu Changxing. A trace of heartfelt crimson flashed through her icy eyes but was quickly replaced by a look of determination. Now that the opportunity for her breakthrough was within reach, even her Moon Palace serene heart of the supreme forgetful love technique could hardly suppress this sense of urgency. Lu Changxing, upon hearing these words, pursed his lips. He could tell that Xiao Xie was sincere. And he was quite pleased with her proactive approach. A Dao heart vow might not be infallible, but for someone like Xiao Xie, who was single-minded in her cultivation, it was a reliably safe course of action. Since she had said so much, he felt he could agree to the arrangement. After all, he wasn't planning to make her bear children right now. Having made up his mind, Lu Changxing said to Xiao Xie, "Since Xiao Daoist has put it that way, how can I refuse? There's no need for any lavish gifts, I only hope that in the future you can help me with one thing. I have yet to decide what it is, I will let you know once I have figured it out," Lu Changxing stated. In his view, having helped Xiao Xie with such an intimate act as surmounting an emotional trial, Xiao Xie might as well be considered the mother of his future child. It was not convenient for him to take her home to be the mother now, but it would be no issue once he had the strength to do so. Considering Xiao Xie's current cool demeanor, if she continued to progress in her cultivation, she might become an icy statue. So, it was necessary to plant a seed earlier on. After all, he, Lu Changxing, never forced anyone. Upon hearing this, Xiao Xie's eyebrows knitted slightly. She would not have agreed to such a condition from anyone else, as it was akin to a sword hanging over one's head, making it difficult to cultivate in peace. But considering this was related to her great Dao opportunity and the cause and effect of her emotional trial, and given her interactions with Lu Changxing over these days, she felt relatively confident about his character. Otherwise, she wouldn't have disclosed her emotional trial to him. She nodded and said, "As long as it does not go against the Dao heart, she will do her best to fulfill it when the time comes." Xiao Xie spoke, and then solemnly raised her hand to take the vow. She vowed that she would not blame Lu Changxing whether the emotional trial succeeded or failed, and that she alone would bear the consequences of any event. Bearing a few children shouldn't count as going against the Dao heart, right? Lu Changxing thought to himself, watching Xiao Xie make her vow. He nodded slightly and said to Xiao Xie, "How do you plan to start?" At these words, Xiao Xie blinked in surprise. She knew her emotional trial was related to the affections between men and women, her own desires, but how to begin, or what to do next, she found herself at a loss. After all, in this matter, she was truly clueless. The next moment, she saw Lu Changxing's handsome face drawing closer, a warm, moist breath approached her lips and enveloped them. A blush like blooming snow lotuses crept onto Xiao Xie's face, her heart pounded furiously, wanting to push Lu Changxing away. But the surging shyness and desire within her, controlled by the supreme forgetful love technique, suppressed her instinctive reaction. Her eyelashes quivered as she hid her embarrassment, her face filled with bewilderment and helplessness, allowing him to take the lead. Chapter 283, Yun Wanshang, Could Something Have Happened to Shiyu? The fervent breath pried open her clenched teeth, intensifying her emotions to an overpowering degree, rendering her nearly incapable of self-control. No, this can't happen. Moments later, Xiao Xie felt the supreme forgetful love technique almost fail, and a languid moan escaped from her nostrils as she lightly struggled. Her stunningly beautiful face was flushed with a rosy hue, her delicate body going limp in waves. She seemed powerless to resist, almost collapsing in Lu Changxing's arms. After a while, Lu Changxing embraced Xiao Xie's tall and graceful figure, and in a gentle voice, he said, "Daoist Xiao, is this the desired effect?" Xiao Xie's eyes were slightly downcast, her lips tenderly pink as she softly murmured an "Hum." The sunlight outside streamed through the lattice windows, sprinkling over the fairy's jade-like face. It bloomed on her beautiful cheeks like trees laden with snow and brought a hint of shallowness and enchantment to her holy and charming appearance. With the circulation of the supreme forgetful love technique, Xiaoxia gradually suppressed and extinguished the tide of carnal desire. Would Daoist Xiao like to continue? Lu Changxing, holding her waist and smelling the fragrance from her hair, asked, looking at Xiaoxia in such a state. He found the fairy Shiyu's appearance quite amusing. Normally, she seemed cold and aloof, like the 9 heavens bright moon high above, serene, sacred, indifferent, and calm, provoking only distant admiration without daring any desecration. Yet with the slightest intimacy, she would become like a little girl, her face flush with shyness, her body going weak. Once it stopped, she would slowly revert to the ethereal fairy demeanor. Wait, just a moment. Xiaoxia, with eyes enchanting as the moon, allowed the man to wrap his arms around her waist and smell her dark silky hair as she whispered softly. She could feel that just being held like this, breathing in the masculine scent of Lu Changxing, made her heart restless. Lu Changxing, hearing this, remained silent. He simply held her, quietly embracing the tall, exquisite softness, relishing her beauty. After all, he was helping someone in her cultivation. They say that doctors possess compassion, and saving a life is more meritorious than building a 7-tiered pagoda. In Lu Changsheng's view, assisting someone in their cultivation was much the same. A man and a woman, like a pair of celestial beings, quietly embraced each other. It was unclear how much time passed. Xiaoxia's emotions stabilized. She had gradually become accustomed to Lu Changsheng's breath and embrace. Suddenly, the fairy pursed her lips and took the initiative to lift her cold jade-like face, the moon-white embroidered shoes elevating slightly. Their lips met, eyes closed gently. During this process, Xiaoxia's cheeks began to blush once again. It was her first kiss just now. And now, it was her first time initiating a kiss. During this, she remained shy and passive, allowing the actions to happen to her without taking the lead. Desire surged wildly within her, making the supreme forgetful love technique circulate rapidly, her stunningly beautiful cheeks radiating with allure, a blush spreading from her face to her ears and neck. Moments later, the raised tips of her toes inside the moon-white embroidered shoes began to weaken along with her delicate body. And just then, Xiaoxia, who was lost in the intoxication as if savoring fine wine, suddenly stiffened as if struck by lightning. With a soft yelp, her entire delicate body went limp, and she began to tremble. This caused the effect of the supreme forgetful love technique to directly fail. No, this mustn't happen. The beautiful face of the fairy flushed red as blood, experiencing an odd sensation on her chest, her legs going weak. She quickly gasped for breath and spoke out to stop Lu Changsheng's actions. Huff. 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 As their lips parted, Xiaoxia gasped for air, her breath as fragrant as orchids. She pursed the corners of her lips and, pretending to be composed, lifted her hand to wipe away the traces at the corner of her mouth, and said, Lu Daoist, let's call it a day. She felt that things were moving too fast, and she had to take time to properly digest it. But having said that, her body had yet to recover from its trembling, still leaning in Lu Changsheng's arms. All right, as Daoist Xiao wishes. Lu Changsheng looked at the radiant beauty in his arms, her lips lustrous and full, at the fairy who was struggling to maintain self-control, and a hint of amusement crossed his mind. He thought to himself that this fairy's combat strength was really too weak. If this were the case, her path to cultivation would indeed be very long. After a while, Xiaoxia's demeanor calmed down a bit, she gave Lu Changxing a salute and staggered away. Watching the hastily departing fairy, Lu Changxing chuckled softly, twirling his fingers and bringing them to his nose to sniff. He could still smell a fragrance like a blossoming garden of flowers. He couldn't help thinking, the fairy indeed carried her own weight, certainly not one to leave her children hungry in the future. Phew. Having just assisted the fairy in her cultivation, Lu Changxing felt that it had also affected him, his mind a bit disordered. He would need to find his wives and consorts to help with his own cultivation. After returning to her room, Xiaoxia had a maid fill a tub with water for her to bathe. She soaked alone in the bathtub scattered with flower petals. Is it worth it? During the recent cultivation session, which nearly nullified the supreme forgetful love technique, her state of mind seemed to revert to her once genuine and lively self, her heartstrings beginning to quiver. She questioned herself, whether it was worth it to do this for the sake of cultivation. A trace of confusion flashed in Xiao Xie's eyes. She recalled joining the Qingyun sect, her master Yun Wanshang imparting the supreme forgetful love technique to her, and her own resolute choice of the supreme forgetful love technique without any hesitation. She remembered the years of hard cultivation, the leaving of the mountain for experience, and clarifying Lu Changsheng's emotional calamity with him. She was acutely aware that all this was her own choice, following her true nature. It's worth it, all of it. Xiao Xie's eyes were clear, the confusion, retreat, and regret in her heart clearing away. As the supreme forgetful love technique circulated, her beautiful eyes became as cold as the moon. She murmured to herself, "I can certainly do it." Her cold and touching voice was very calm. Chapter 284, Yun Wanshang. Could something have happened to Shiyu? But it revealed an unwavering determination. With the clarity of her Tao heart, she felt as if her realm had also loosened somewhat. In the following days, Lu Changsheng and Xiao Xie did not venture out, but continued their cultivation practice within the residence. During these days, under the guidance of Lu Changsheng, Xiao Xie's practice of the supreme forgetful love technique improved rapidly. She no longer closed her eyes and simply endured his verbal sparring, letting things happen, but would now slightly shyly collaborate a little. Although her proud chest still fluttered when caressed, it no longer caused the supreme forgetful love technique to lose its effect, and gradually she was able to control and restrain this surge of desire. Pitifully, this made things difficult for Lu Changsheng. Initially, Lu Changsheng thought he was merely helping a fairy with her practice, as if helping the future mother of his child. But once he truly assisted, this was not mere fairy cultivation, it was also a cultivation for himself. Thankfully he had his wives in the residence, otherwise, who could withstand it? While Lu Changsheng was practicing with the fairy, at Qingyun sect, Kaiyun Peak, within a magnificent palace, Yun Wanshang was seated, engaged in alchemy. A green jade pill furnace, brimming with vitality and lush greenery, slowly rotated above her head. As a nascent soul immortal, she naturally knew some skills. In terms of alchemy, although not extremely profound, she was also a second-rank alchemist. Coalesce. As she formed hand seals, she sent a spiritual art towards the pill furnace. Elixir medicines flew out one by one from the pill furnace, landing in her hands. Out of 10 elixir medicines, half were dull and scorched, clearly failures. What's wrong with me today? My mental spirit is somewhat restless during alchemy. Could it be that something has happened to Shiyu? Yun Wanshang frowned slightly as she looked at the elixir medicines in her hand. Her first thought was whether her disciple, Xiao Xie, had encountered trouble. But through the soul guide on Xiao Xie's body, she knew that Xiao Xie was not in mortal danger. Immediately, a jade token appeared in her hand. This was an information-transmitting jade token, divided into a pair of master and subordinate tokens. Although it could not convey specific information, during its creation, one could inscribe general information for simple communication. Yun Wanshang used the master and subordinate communication tokens to reach out to Xiao Xie, inquiring about her situation. Within the Lu family residence, in a room of a courtyard, the sound of Walla Walla could be heard. Xiao Xie sat in a bath bucket, her black hair lightly tied up. She scooped up the hot water tinged with flower petals with her delicate hands, gently rubbing away the non-existent saliva mark on her snowy skin. The clear serene beauty on her face was calm, but her eyes that were as bright as the full moon, trembled from time to time, clearly not as tranquil as she appeared. She had thought that after so many days of cultivation, her mental state would have greatly improved, allowing her to control these emotions. Yet, under Lu Changsheng's childlike behavior, her Tao heart was once again challenged. But inside, she did not reject such behavior. Or rather, she did not reject such behavior from Lu Changsheng. She knew that Lu Changsheng was helping her with her cultivation. And the effects of such cultivation methods also made her even more certain that Lu Changsheng was indeed the opportunity and key to her breakthrough. At that moment, Xiao Xia's mental spirit stirred slightly, and with a beckoning gesture, she pulled out a jade token from the nearby storage bag. Seeing the caring message from her master on the jade token warmed Xiao Xia's heart, and a touch of softness appeared in her eyes. She also knew that her master was worried about her discipleship and training outside the mountain, and immediately replied through the jade token, indicating she was well and asked her master to be at ease, not to worry. Although she had things she wanted to say to her own master, the jade token could only convey simple messages. Meanwhile, in Azure Phoenix Immortal City, within a second-order cave mansion, Kaiyun True Immortal's disciple Xiao Xia is out on a solo training expedition. A young man around 27 or 28 years old, dressed in a crimson brocade robe, with a somewhat sinister and cunning face, looked at the message in his hand. Back then, my cheat master went to ambush Yun Wanshang, only to never return. Now they send a message, wanting me to go and ambush this disciple of Kaiyun True Immortal, hee. The corners of the young man's mouth curled up in a cold smirk. However, for the sake of this heavenly pure water, I might as well make a trip. After all, she's just a little chi refinement girl. Moreover, if this girl was taken as a disciple by Yun Wanshang, she must have an exceptional talent. Looking at the self-destructing jade slip in his hand, greed flickered in his eyes as he stepped out of the mansion. Within the Lu family residence. Zing zing zing. In a courtyard, Xiao Xia played the ancient zither in her white dress and skirt, her demeanor cool and ethereal. The sound of the zither was lingering and extremely beautiful. But to those proficient in rhythm, it was evident that the music was somewhat chaotic. Clearly, the player's heart was not at peace. Sigh. Xiao Xia stopped playing the zither, sighing deeply. Her stunningly beautiful face momentarily lost in thought with a blush creeping up her cheeks. Just recalling the events of the previous day caused desire to surge uncontrollably within her, and the supreme forgetful love technique began to circulate rapidly. That day, during their cultivation, Lu Changxing had lifted and slid off her moon-white dress and then. Feelings of shyness, shame, panic, confusion, and palpitations tormented her, a sensation like gnawing bones and scorching hearts, making her tremble and unable to compose herself even now. She felt as if she were ruined. It was nothing like when she did it herself in the past. As a result, she hadn't been able to calm her emotions entirely. And then yesterday. Xiao Xia looked toward her jade foot wrapped in plain white silk stockings inside her moon-white embroidered shoes. Her eyes, usually cool and indifferent like the bright moon, were now like a lake disturbed by falling drizzle, rippling slightly. Just as Xiao Xia's emotions were in turmoil and she was about to use the supreme forgetful love technique to calm herself, knock knock knock, a series of knocks sounded at the door. Xiao Xia knew it was Lu Changxing. This courtyard was only ever visited by Lu Changxing. Is it time to start cultivating today? Xiao Xia felt a tinge of restlessness in her heart, mixed with faint anticipation. Xiao Daoist. Lu Changxing looked toward Xiao Xia in front of the zither, who was clad in white, surpassing the snow, resembling the bright moon above or the Guanghan Ferry, and called out with a smile. Lu Daoist, you've arrived. Xiao Xia's expression was cool, yet pleased as she looked toward the young man. She didn't know how Lu Changxing would cultivate with her today. Xiao Daoist, I'll be away for a while, as there are matters to attend to at Qingzhou Mountain, so I need to make a trip back. Thus, for the upcoming period, it might be inconvenient to cultivate with you, Lu Changxing said up front to the fairy before him. His trip to Rui County City for the appointment had already been earlier than scheduled. As it had been 1 or 2 months since he'd been outside, he needed to return home briefly to inform his wives and concubines and to handle affairs at the spiritual talisman shop. Although the days spent cultivating with the fairy brought both pain and pleasure, he couldn't forget his home or neglect his duties. Moreover, the cultivation with the fairy couldn't be completed in a short time, and he couldn't stay with Xiao Xia here to cultivate at a leisurely pace. Going back. Xiao Xia nodded at his words. She was aware that Lu Changxing spent most of his time in the cultivation world, only occasionally visiting the secular realm. That he had stayed for so long in the secular world this time was because of her cultivation matters. You've had a hard time these days, Lu Daoist, Xiao Xia said softly. You're too courteous, Xiao Daoist. When I return, probably next month, I should be able to come over, Lu Changxing replied with a smile. Though it was painful and joyful, he had also tasted its sweetness, which he found quite acceptable in his view. I'll go with Lu Daoist. I remember that Red Leaf Valley Market is near Qingzhou Mountain, that way it would be convenient for you to go back and forth, Lu Daoist, instead of the trouble of traveling to and fro. Besides, during this time I've had some insights and want to go see the cultivation world, Xiao Xie spoke out. She felt indebted for Lu Changsheng's assistance. Alright, since that's the case, let's set off right now. Lu Changsheng felt this would be better and much more convenient upon hearing her words. After all, the trip from Qingzhou Mountain to Red Leaf Valley was only half a day's journey. Spending days in the secular world was not only troublesome with the traveling back and forth but without the spirit vein, it also hindered and affected his cultivation. Xiao Xie, hearing Lu Changxing mention setting off right away to handle proper matters, felt an inexplicable hint of slight loss in her heart upon not hearing anything about cultivating together. However, she didn't show this emotion and immediately smoothed over and erased these feelings. She nodded lightly and said, "All right." Immediately, Lu Changxing informed his wives, concubines, and children and then set off with Xiao Xie, riding flying mounts and leaving Rui County City for Red Leaf Valley Market. Chapter 285, Foundation Establishment Ambush, Treasure Bones Emerge. _1 The vast clear sky was a washed azure blue. A black iron feather eagle and a majestic immortal crane with pure white feathers were soaring swiftly through the air. On the backs of the iron feather eagle and the immortal crane, there stood a handsome young man with a stalwart figure, and a cold-faced, tall, and graceful woman. It was Lu Changxing and Xiao Xie who had departed from Rui County City and were heading towards the Red Leaf Valley Market. Lu Changxing, utterly bored, watched Xiao Xie atop the crane, her tall and graceful figure draped in a moon-white dress, standing there like an ethereal fairy. Her cool and detached visage bore the pure aura of the bright moon in the sky, exuding an air of immortality. Beneath the caress of the wind, her long black hair and the hem of her dress fluttered, occasionally revealing a small section of her fair and round jade-like legs. This sight involuntarily caused Lu Changxing to think back to the moments of her cultivation over the past several days. Indeed, to hold an esteemed and inviolable fairy beneath oneself and indulge as one pleases is the deepest desire hidden in the heart of every man, Lu Changxing thought to himself, exhaling lightly to suppress the restlessness within his heart. For Xiao Xie, these days were for cultivation. For him, they were likewise a form of cultivation. Fellow Daoist Xiao, in about 2 days, we should reach the Red Leaf Valley Market. Seeing a landmark range of mountains and having a rough idea of their location, Lu Changxing sent a message to Xiao Xie. Good, Xiao Xie replied. Whether she was in the state of cultivation or not, she was usually not very talkative, somewhat reticent. However, if a topic was brought up to her, Xiao Xie would always respond. Like during these days, Lu Changxing had asked Xiao Xie numerous questions. Even to some of the more personal questions, she would answer. The iron feather eagle and the immortal crane continued to glide rapidly through the air. Just then, be careful! Xiao Xie suddenly exclaimed. She abruptly turned her gaze to the right where an ancient chain appeared in her hands. Alerted by her exclamation, Lu Changxing quickly turned and looked in the same direction. He immediately saw a stream of rainbow light slashing through the sky far away, speeding directly toward them. The little girl is not simple, indeed, to have detected my presence. Truly worthy of being a disciple of Kaiyun True Immortal, in the next moment, the rainbow light appeared mere zhongs away from the two. A man in his late 20s, with a sinister, effeminate face and dressed in a crimson brocade robe, materialized. Standing on a black cloud, he radiated a powerful aura of spirit pressure. It caused Lu Changsheng's iron feather eagle below him to flap its wings frantically and shiver in fear. A foundation establishment cultivator. Lu Changsheng's pupils shrank, and his gaze narrowed slightly. From the man's speed and the spirit pressure he emitted, Lu Changxing immediately knew he was faced with a Foundation Establishment Great Cultivator. And from the look of it, this Foundation Establishment Great Cultivator bore no good intentions. "Senior recognizes my master, is there something you require?" Xiao Xie looked toward the young man and spoke. Her fair hand rested on the chin, poised and ready to strike, clearly perceiving the ill intentions of their adversary. "I am here for you this time, as for the reason, you shall know in a moment," the man in the crimson robe spoke as he stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes revealing a glint of dark red light. As soon as he finished speaking, a mass of dark red murderous aura appeared beside him, transforming into the head of a ferocious python and roaring as it lunged toward Xiao Xie. Clang! Xiao Xie, prepared for such an event, plucked a string on the chin, and a resonant sound arose, followed by a gust of wind. It was clear to see ripples of sound waves emanating from Xiao Xie at the center, rolling out like a series of circular blades and crushing the murderous python with their force. But the next moment, the shattered murderous python, like mist, reassembled and continued its ferocious onslaught. Realizing the situation, Xiao Xie understood that this foundation-building great cultivator was an enemy, not a friend. Even with her exceptional talent, she stood no chance against a Foundation Establishment Great Cultivator. Especially since this great cultivator was evidently no ordinary one. Immediately, she took out a second-rank, ice blue talisman from her storage bag and activated it swiftly. A terrible frost and cold wind arose as if intending to freeze the heavens and earth, aiming to encase the murderous python in ice and form a giant wall of ice. "Go!" Xiao Xie didn't linger, immediately shouting to Lu Changxing. Without hesitation, she retracted the immortal crane into her spiritual pet bag and conjured a cloud veil. Her graceful figure in white dress alighted on the cloud veil, reached out to Lu Changxing beside her, and brought him onto the cloud veil. Together, they turned into a beam of escape light, attempting to flee. "You think you can escape?" The man in the crimson robe watched this unfold, his lips curling up in a slight smile, his voice filled with contempt and disdain. He, a Foundation Establishment Great Cultivator, set on interdicting a mere Qi refinement minor, couldn't possibly let them get away. Even with the addition of Lu Changxing, it only meant another Qi refinement cultivator, hardly worth his concern. Scowl. The man in the crimson robe formed hand seals and shouted coldly. Suddenly, his life-bound spiritual artifact, the red phoenix pearl, flew out from his dantian and hovered above his head, radiating a red glow. A beam of light shot out, casting a red glow that caused the figure of Xiao Xie, maneuvering the cloud veil to escape, to stiffen abruptly. Immediately after, a chilling white flying sword appeared out of nowhere, its sword chi roiling and sharpness menacing, making a beeline for Xiao Xie. Not good. Realizing the imminent threat of the flying sword, Xiao Xie knew escape was likely impossible. Quickly, she slapped her storage bag and summoned a 5-colored tortoise shell. The tortoise shell shot into the air, unfolding a 5-colored radiance while exuding an aura of impregnable defense. Then, a colorful sword bead appeared. The sword bead spun wildly, surrounded by terrifying sword light, seeming capable of slicing through everything. "Go!" Xiao Xie formed hand seals and shouted crisply, propelling the sword bead viciously towards the man in the crimson robe. Chapter 286, Foundation Establishment Ambush, Treasure Bones Emerge. Lu Changxing was slightly taken aback by Xiao Xie's decisive actions and strategies in combat. He hadn't expected Xiao Xie to be so resolute, possessing such fighting techniques. She didn't seem like someone who was experiencing her first time outside for training at all. He couldn't help thinking to himself that the disciples taught within the Immortal sects were truly different. They didn't just know how to cultivate, in terms of combat techniques, they were completely superior to many ordinary loose cultivators. Furthermore, looking at the cloud veil, tortoise shell, and sword bead, which were obviously of superior and top-grade magic artifacts, she seemed to be very wealthy. Despite his astonishment, Lu Changxing didn't just stand by and do nothing. He took out a stack of talismans, all of middle and superior grade, and threw out more than a dozen in one go. After all, as a talisman master, it was only natural for him to carry extra talismans for self-defense. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the talismans emitted a diffuse light, turning into streams of fire clouds, fire serpents, ice spikes, wind blades, and lightning, bursting forth wildly. Clang clang clang. The stark white flying sword struck against the five-colored tortoise shell, the swords vibrating, and the tide-like sword chi roaring tumultuously, as if to shred to pieces anyone it touched, causing faint cracks to appear on the tortoise shell. As for the onslaught of the colorful sword beads and talismans, the young man in the red robe just let out a disdainful sneer. He lifted his right hand, crystal clear like jade and shimmering with a demonic luster, and directly grasped the sword bead. Crack, crack, the sharp sword beads made a teeth-grating crack sound against the crystal-like jade palm. A murderous python bursting with sinister chi leapt from his shoulder, directly neutralizing and shattering Lu Changsheng's talisman's offensive. This is definitely not an ordinary foundation-building great cultivator. Seeing this scene, Lu Changsheng's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't say much about his own stack of talisman attacks. It was quite normal for them to be neutralized, being merely middle and superior grade talismans. But Xiao Xia's tortoise shell and sword bead were clearly not simple. Yet, under the techniques of this young man in the red robe, the tortoise shell cracked, and the sword bead was even pinched in his hand. Although the young man's palm seemed to use some kind of spell, it still made him very alarmed. He knew that the strength of this young man in the red robe was not that of an ordinary foundation-building great cultivator. His power far exceeded the Lu family ancestor, Chen family ancestor, Bai family ancestor, and Meng Xiaochan that he had encountered before. Humph. Xiao Xia's countenance paled slightly as the two artifacts she summoned were broken, and she let out a muffled groan. She took out a silver talisman from her storage bag and handed it to Lu Changsheng. She quickly transmitted her voice, "Lu Daoist, this matter started because of me. He must be tracking me through some kind of technique. This is a second-rank escape talisman. It'll hold him off for a moment. You can use the talisman to escape from here," Xiao Xie said urgently. Practicing the supreme forgetful love technique helped her keep her mind calm even in the face of various crises. She knew that the young man in the red robe, a foundation-building great cultivator, was after her. This kind of encounter was certainly no coincidence. It was highly likely that the opponent possessed some secret technique that could find her. Thus, in this situation, it was extremely difficult for her to escape from the hands of a foundation-building great cultivator. She also didn't want to get Lu Changsheng involved at this time. Lu Changsheng did not take the talisman. He had such second-rank escape talismans himself. If he had wanted to escape, he could have used the talisman to do so during the first opportunity in the gap between their fights. But faced with this situation, leaving Xiao Xia behind and escaping alone was something he found rather difficult to do. Sigh, with this kind of nature, I'm really not suited for the cultivation world, for these times, he thought to himself. However, after tasting both the sweet and the savory, and she being the future mother of my children, I can't just stand by and do nothing, Lu Changsheng sighed softly in his heart. He decided to fight back fiercely and see if he could save Xiao Xia. His boldness wasn't completely ungrounded. He had a certain confidence. He felt that if he truly gave it his all, he could take down a foundation-building enemy. Though this particular foundation builder was somewhat strong. Moreover, even if he was no match, he had the life-substituting talisman on him to cling to life. In the blink of an eye, with thoughts flashing through his mind, Lu Changsheng made a decision, his palms subtly retracting into his sleeves. One hand held a talisman, the other gripped a talisman treasure emitting golden light. "Hurry up," Xiao Xia pressed, looking at Lu Changsheng with some anxiety. She urged him to take the talisman and escape quickly. "Xiao Daoist, under these circumstances, how could I abandon you and leave?" Lu Changsheng responded with a light chuckle. "At a time like this, still indulging in romantic sentiment? But make no mistake, you two are doomed not to become lovebirds on the run." The young man in the red robe's eyes flashed fiercely as he abruptly exclaimed. In a pair of deep-set eyes, a crimson light glowed, striking fear into the heart. The next instant, Lu Changsheng's brow peach blossom goo roared furiously. It felt as if his brain had been hammered by something, his head dizzying, which made him let out a muffled groan. The pendant artifact he wore on his neck emitted a cool breeze at that moment. Pfft! Xiao Xie, on the other hand, turned deathly pale at the instant, and suddenly spurted a mouthful of fresh blood, clutching her white forehead. Huh! You brat can actually withstand my divine sense attack. The young man in the red robe was quite surprised seeing this scene. He never expected that under his divine consciousness secret technique, Lu Changsheng would remain unscathed, merely grunting. He knew that ordinary cultivators affected by his divine sense attack either fell immediately or ended up like Xiao Xie. Additionally, he could tell that Lu Changsheng was not a foundation establishment cultivator. He was likely just an energy refining cultivator. For a minor energy refiner to withstand his divine consciousness secret technique indicated the possession of some kind of protective treasure for the sea of consciousness. That made his eyes gleam with greed. Chapter 287, Foundation Establishment Ambush, Treasure Bones Emerge. After all, treasures that can protect the sea of consciousness are all highly cherished. No matter what treasure you have, it's all mine now. The red-robed youth laughed heartily, his palm closing as the red phoenix pearl hovering above his head radiated a dazzling light, shining towards Lu Changsheng and Xiao Xie. The ghostly white little sword broke through the five-colored tortoise shell and, with a whoosh, charged towards Lu Changsheng. The brilliance from the red phoenix pearl caused Lu Changsheng's figure to suddenly stiffen, feeling as if his surroundings were sealed off and his spiritual power flowing sluggishly within him. He knew this was the gap between the realms of qi refinement and foundation establishment. Not daring to hold back any longer, he slapped his storage bag. Suddenly, a 2-meter-tall metal puppet appeared in front of him, its body pitch black, wielding a knife in one hand, a shield in the other, and carrying 5 dark javelins on its back. It was the second-rank puppet he had forged, which had been lying dormant in his storage bag gathering dust. Clang! Facing the ghostly white flying sword, the metal puppet stepped forward, shield at the ready, creating a metallic clang and sparks flying in all directions. Immediately after, the black gold long knife in the puppet's hand fiercely swung out, mighty and unyielding, striking the ghostly white flying sword with another deafening clang. You also have a second-rank puppet? Seems like you're not as simple as you look, kid. The red-robed youth watched this scene, chuckled lightly, still appearing nonchalant and unconcerned. But the next moment. A talisman treasure. He saw that in Lu Changsheng's hands, an aura was spreading. A golden, rectangular object shot out, rapidly enlarging in the air, shining brightly, causing his expression to change subtly. Even as a foundation-building great cultivator, facing a talisman treasure like this, he felt a bit troubled. It seems you really aren't simple, kid. Since that's the case, then go to your death. The red-robed youth, seeing that Lu Changsheng had both a second-rank puppet and a talisman treasure, dropped the cat-and-mouse attitude. His hands formed a spiritual art, and one by one, evil pythons appeared, their momentum fierce as they charged towards Lu Changsheng, prepared for a quick battle. Xiao Xie, with a pale face and blood spilling from her mouth, was astonished by Lu Changsheng's actions. Her beautiful face showed disbelief. Having been in close contact for so long, she naturally realized that Lu Changsheng was not as simple as he appeared on the surface. He surely had hidden his abilities, his secrets. As for this, she did not question or care about it too much. After all, which cultivator does not have some fortune and secrets on them? But she never would have guessed that Lu Changsheng had hidden his powers so deeply, producing a second-rank puppet and a talisman treasure unexpectedly. Especially when Lu Changsheng activated the talisman treasure, with the aura of spiritual power surging around his body. It allowed her to approximately perceive that Lu Changsheng's cultivation level and strength must be the same as hers, at qi refinement perfection. However, seeing that Lu Changsheng had such strength and measures to escape on his own, yet chose to fight by revealing himself in order to save her, it made her heart flutter, spawning an inexplicable emotion. But at this moment, she did not pay attention to this feeling, taking out a golden talisman paper from her storage bag. Buzz buzz buzz. Xiao Xie stimulated the talisman paper with her spiritual power, causing a small golden sword to appear, emitting a terrifying might. This turned out to also be a talisman treasure. Huh! Another talisman treasure. The red-robed youth saw this, his eyes flickered, and his expression darkened. Before he acted, he had guessed that these Qi Refinement Juniors would certainly have treasures to defend themselves. But he did not expect that there would be this additional complication. 2 Qi Refinement Juniors, each possessing a talisman treasure. But they are just 2 Qi Refinement Juniors, even with talisman treasures, how can they unleash their full power? The red-robed youth scoffed, smacked his belt, and a set of black armor appeared, which he put on. After all, even though it was just talk, the unleashed power of 2 talisman treasures could potentially injure him if he was careless. Roar roar roar. Meanwhile, the 9 evil pythons had already furiously charged right in front of Lu Changxing. Lu Changxing was fully focused on activating the golden brick talisman treasure when he saw this sight, his fingers squeezing an activated supreme talisman, a thunder talisman. At this moment, as he activated the golden brick talisman treasure and controlled the second-rank puppet, he found it difficult to use another second-rank talisman. Under his puppet control technique, the second-rank puppet, which was clashing head-on with the ghostly white flying sword, suddenly had all 5 javelins on its back shoot up into the sky. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, like thunder and lightning, they turned into 5 black bolts of lightning, and together they rushed toward the 9-headed evil python, fiercely and powerfully. Boom boom boom. Every one of the 5 javelins, each as powerful as a strike from someone of the Foundation establishment stage, collided with the 9-headed evil python, causing an explosive booming noise. But during this collision, Lu Changxing could distinctly feel that the middle-grade spirit stones within the puppet's core were being rapidly consumed, unable to keep up with the onslaught of the enemy's attacks. We must end this battle quickly. Lu Changxing also knew that in this situation, his side could not afford to drag the fight out. Every casual attack from his opponent forced him to use all his techniques. Looking up at the sky, where the golden brick now resembled a small mountain, Lu Changxing's mind shifted slightly. He poured his entire mental spirit and spiritual power into controlling the talisman treasure. Boom! The mountainous, radiant golden brick, with its heavy and pure aura, plummeted down towards the red-robed youth. Chi! Faced with the surging momentum of the falling golden brick, the youth dared not underestimate it and let out a low shout. The red phoenix pearl above his head spun rapidly, radiating intense red light, making the surroundings appear as if engulfed by a blazing cloud, rising to meet the golden brick bearing down like a formidable mountain. Rumble rumble. The 2 treasures collided, their might surging, locking the golden and red light in a standoff midair. And at that moment, Xiao Xie's talisman treasure, the golden little sword, also burst forth. This little golden sword, nearly pushed to its limit by Xiao Xie, displayed an incredible might and suddenly closed in on the red-robed youth. Chapter 288, Foundation Establishment Ambush, Treasure Bones Emerge. Underscore for the youth was combating the golden talisman treasure brick when he saw the small sword coming to kill him. He slapped his hand, and a puppet in the form of a tiger appeared. Pfft! In just a moment, the golden small sword pierced through the tiger puppet, shattering its core. But in that instant, the youth wielded a pair of blood-colored scissors from his hand, which transformed into a blood-colored flood dragon, colliding with the golden small sword. Clang clang clang. The golden small sword and the blood-colored flood dragon continuously clashed. At this moment, the youth in the red robe was somewhat strained facing the second-rank puppet and 2 talisman treasures. He saw that Xiao Xie was already at the end of her tether. Under the initial offensive and divine sense attack, her mental spirit had already been damaged. Now, as she desperately stimulated the talisman treasures, both her mental spirit and mana were barely holding on. He prepared to deal with Xiao Xie first, then handle Lu Changxing. With a flicker of his mental spirit, the sun-white flying sword entangled with the second-rank puppet suddenly turned and charged towards Xiao Xie. Daoist Xiao, be careful. Lu Changsheng, upon seeing this, immediately shouted. He took control of the second-rank puppet to intercept the flying sword. However, after the 9-headed evil python was shattered, it regrouped, indomitable, forcing the puppet to block its way. Pfft! Xiao Xia's complexion turned pale as she saw the small sword coming to kill her. She bit her silver teeth, spitting fresh blood onto her ancient zither. Twang! Immediately, the ancient zither soared into the sky, its blood-stained strings plucked autonomously, emitting a sound like that of warhorses and ironclad soldiers, as wave after wave of sound wave blades were unleashed. Clang clang clang! The sun-white flying sword collided with the ancient zither, making Xiao Xia's face even paler. Daoist Lu, you must go quickly. Xiao Xia said aloud. She could see that even if Lu Changsheng was hiding his strength, possessing a second-rank puppet and talisman treasures, this Foundation establishment great cultivator was not an ordinary one. They were no match for him. If they persisted, both of them would die here. After speaking, she fully stimulated her mental spirit and spiritual power, propelling the golden small sword to create an opportunity for Lu Changsheng. The sword emitted bursts of golden light around itself, and with a fierce slash, it cut a deep gash in the body of the blood-colored flood dragon, causing the spiritual artifact to revert to a blood-colored pair of scissors and fall from the sky. At that moment, the golden small sword also dimmed considerably but still charged towards the youth in the red robe. Humph! The youth in the red robe, seeing his spiritual artifact damaged, let out a cold snort and formed a hand seal. Black armor around him surged with a ghostly light, and at the same time, the blood-colored scissors flew up again, transforming into a blood-colored flood dragon, colliding with the golden small sword. But at this moment, the blood-colored flood dragon was clearly much dimmer than before. Lu Changsheng, watching this scene, also had an estimate of the youth in the red robe's strength. He knew the latter was also running low on strength. He propelled the talisman treasure golden brick with all his might while controlling the second-rank puppet to attack the youth in the red robe. The treasure bones in his chest were poised and ready. This was his last trump card. Damn it! The youth in the red robe, seeing the puppet coming to kill, also looked somewhat sullen and ugly. Lu Changsheng and Xiao Xia, although both were in the stage of qi refinement, summoned talisman treasures with incredibly astonishing power. Especially the golden light brick, which completely entangled his life-bound spiritual artifact, crazily draining the mana within his body. He gritted his teeth, formed a hand seal with both hands, and slapped his chest to use a secret technique. It allowed him, under such circumstances, to split a part of his mental spirit and mana to control his magic artifact. Clang clang clang! Immediately, a purple bell magic artifact appeared, gently swaying in the void and emitting a series of soul-stirring sounds. This sound made both Lu Changsheng and Xiao Xia unable to help but feel dazed, somewhat dizzy and swollen-headed. The young man clearly saw that both were fully controlling the talisman treasure, thus expending a great deal of their mental spirit. A disturbance would inevitably lead to an opening. Pfft! The second-rank puppet reached the young man in the red robe, and the black gold long knife in its hand slashed out explosively. The young man wasn't a body cultivator, so naturally he wouldn't forcibly resist such a close-range attack. An armor surrounded by dim light materialized a ghostly shield in front of him, blocking the strike. The purple bell continued to ding, unsettling the mind, causing Xiao Xia, who was barely holding on, to completely faint. Now's the moment. Lu Changsheng's eyes flashed fiercely, knowing that the young man in the red robe had also reached his limit. Now, without Xiao Xia's help, he couldn't delay any longer. If the opponent had the chance to recover, there would be no opportunity. He immediately patted the spiritual pet bag and summoned the six-winged golden silkworm. This six-winged golden silkworm had been raised for almost 2 years now. But regardless of its size or appearance, there was no difference from when he first obtained it. It was still in the larval stage. However, at this moment, as long as it could be of use, that was enough. Lu Changsheng had the six-winged golden silkworm prepare in secret. Then, while putting all his strength into stimulating the golden light brick, he unleashed the treasure bones that he had nourished for many years with the black dragon magical bead. Roar, roar, roar! In an instant, dragon roars resonated through the void. Straight from Lu Changsheng's chest, a tide of dark light spread unceasingly, like a rolling river with surging waves, emitting a terrifyingly powerful aura. What kind of technique is this, and how does it have the aura of core formation? And how can this youngster, with only chi refinement strength, having already stimulated one talisman treasure, still unleash such a powerful technique? The young man in the red robe screamed, somewhat panicked. Boom! The next moment, from Lu Changsheng's chest emerged a flood dragon enveloped in glistening black light and shrouded in black mist, giving off a bizarre and evil roar as it emerged. What on earth is this technique? This youngster is clearly just a minor chi refinement cultivator. The young man in the red robe stared at the menacing, roaring flood dragon, his expression also becoming somewhat vacant. Not understanding what was happening before his eyes. Why, while fully controlling a talisman treasure, could he still unleash a technique with a forceful presence not weaker than that of a foundation establishment aura? Roar, roar, roar. Before he could think further, the rolling black mist and the roaring evil spirit of the flood dragon made the young man in the red robe feel his body sluggish and the spiritual light in his mental spirit dim. The black dragon magical bead, upon initial activation, burst forth with black light capable of suppressing the flesh and corrupting the soul. This spirit of the evil flood dragon naturally possessed such an effect. The young man, already in a state of deadlock, couldn't withstand the soul of the evil flood dragon at all and was directly engulfed and devoured by the approaching black mist. Chapter 289, 100,000 Spirit Stones, The Change in Xiaoxia. _1, Rumble. The evil Jiao's soul engulfed and drowned the young man in the red robe. A terrifying radiance filled the void, causing the entire space to boom and explode. Ah! A shrill scream sounded amidst the waves. Huff! This strike, lit by the explosive energy of the treasure bones, also made Lu Changsheng's face somewhat pale, with a faint pain in his chest. Through the red bead that had clashed hard against the golden light brick, he knew that the young man in red was not yet completely dead. Go! Lu Changsheng issued an order to the six-winged golden silkworm, lest the opponent still had some strength left. At the same time, he continued to control the golden light brick with his mental spirit. At this moment, he could clearly feel the might of the red bead resisting the golden light brick had greatly diminished, falling steadily. This indicated the dire situation of the young man in red, who was unable to resist. Boom! 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 As the golden light brick continued suppressing the red phoenix pearl, a blood-red light burst out from the soul of the evil Jiao. It was indeed the young man in red. By now his black armor was ragged, his hair disheveled, his appearance was utterly wretched. Ah, you wait for me, this grudge, the young man in red ranted bitterly, attempting to escape using a secret technique. But before he could finish speaking, the hovering golden light brick came crashing down like a mountain. Puff! Simultaneously, a golden line shot out like an arrow, piercing his forehead, leaving a bloody hole. It was the six-winged golden silkworm. The next moment, the golden light brick also thundered down, pressing both the red phoenix pearl and the young man in red toward the ground below. Upon seeing this, Lu Changsheng embraced Xiaoxia's delicate body and, piloting the flying artifact, descended swiftly. Rumble! With a thunderous roar, the golden light brick pinned the young man directly onto the mountainous terrain, causing the ground to shake. Phew, truly fitting for a foundation establishment great cultivator, so hard to kill. The treasure bones I've nurtured for years are not the least bit weaker than a full-force strike from a talisman treasure, yet he almost got away. Lu Changsheng could sense that the opponent's vitality had nearly extinguished with the six-winged golden silkworm strike. But just to be safe, he had followed up with a blow from the golden light brick. Through the golden light brick, he could detect that the young man in red pinned underneath was thoroughly devoid of life. However, to be on the safe side, Lu Changsheng still took out 3 superior-grade talismans and 1 supreme talisman, setting them up around the golden light brick. After he finished, Lu Changxing slightly stirred his mental spirit, allowing the golden light brick to rise slowly. Upon seeing the mangled corpse within the large pit, Lu Changxing finally felt at ease. He retracted the golden light that had engulfed the brick, which had become as large as a small hill, and watched it shrink, reverting to the form of a talisman and flying back into his hand. But now, this talisman treasure was quite dim, its paper even appearing somewhat damaged. This talisman treasure is probably going to be completely scrapped after one more use. Lu Changxing looked at the dim golden light brick talisman treasure in his hand and mused inwardly. This talisman treasure had been used by him multiple times, already depleting much of its power. The recent battle, though brief, had been greatly taxing due to his full-powered activation. If this foundation establishment great cultivator was a pauper, then this would be quite the loss for me. Lu Changxing gazed into the large crater made by the golden light brick, at the torn body within it, and exhaled lightly. However, the likelihood of this was slim. The red bead, the pale white sword, and the blood-colored scissors alone were of considerable value. Lu Changxing did not ponder long to avoid drawing others to the site of the recent battle. He embraced Xiao Xie's tender body, collected the young man in red's mangled corpse, and quickly gathered the scattered treasures around before swiftly departing. After an hour, Lu Changxing found a cave in the mountain range. He gently placed Xiao Xie down inside. From his storage bag, he took out the heavenly canopy 5 elements formation and set it up. This formation had the effects of trapping enemies and isolating aura, very practical, and was always on Lu Changxing's person. After setting up the formation, Lu Changxing took a recovery elixir medicine from the storage bag and used a healing talisman on him, which made him feel much better. He then checked Xiao Xie's condition. She seemed to have just suffered damage to her mental spirit and had overconsumed her spiritual power, nothing too serious. After making a preliminary assessment, Lu Changxing passed a healing pill into her lips. He then applied another healing talisman to her. He immediately saw her pale complexion improve considerably. The biggest difference between the Qi refinement realm and the foundation establishment stage, aside from the qualitative change in spiritual power and mana, is divine sense. Foundation establishment cultivators give birth to divine sense, which affords great convenience in both combat and cultivation. If it weren't for the peach blossom goo shielding me from divine sense attacks, I fear I would have suffered damage to my mental spirit just like Xiao Xie. Lu Changxing looked at Xiao Xie's form and realized the most undefendable aspect of encountering foundation establishment while being in the Qi refinement stage. Even if you have a magic artifact, defending against divine sense attacks is almost impossible. If he didn't possess the peach blossom goo, he might have been affected as well. Nevertheless, it was only now that Lu Changxing discovered the peach blossom goo had this effect. Immediately, he closed his eyes to introspect, inspecting the condition of the peach blossom goo between his eyebrows. Though it seemed somewhat listless, it wasn't of much concern. This was normal. After all, it was a divine spirit goo. And the growth of the peach blossom goo was remarkably fast. Under his flourishing peach blossom luck, it had grown to the extreme limit of the first transformation. If his cultivation level did not restrict it, it could have advanced to the second transformation. Seeing that Xiao Xie wouldn't awaken anytime soon, Lu Changxing stripped the storage bag and storage belt from the young man in red. He began sorting through the spoils of the battle. I hope they yield a substantial return. Lu Changxing looked at the storage belt and storage bag with a hint of anticipation. Chapter 290, 100,000 Spirit Stones, the change in Xiao Xie. After all, the young man in the red robe didn't seem like an ordinary foundation establishment cultivator. One would think he couldn't be too poor. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At this moment, the 6-winged golden silkworm was flying around Lu Changxing. Its wings, thin as cicadas, fluttered, emitting a bloodthirsty aura. Go ahead. Lu Changxing naturally understood what the 6-winged golden silkworm meant and chuckled lightly. He hadn't burned the young man in the red robe to ashes, precisely to leave the body for the 6-winged golden silkworm. After all, this 6-winged golden silkworm fed on blood. To it, the blood essence of a foundation establishment great cultivator like the young man in the red robe was naturally a great tonic. Having received Lu Changsheng's permission, the six-winged golden silkworm immediately burrowed into the young man's body and began to feast greedily. Isn't this a bit too much like the practices of the demonic path? Lu Changsheng watched the actions of the six-winged golden silkworm and smacked his lips. Very soon, he shook his head and said, "But it's just resource utilization after all. If I didn't feed it to the six-winged golden silkworm, I'd have to burn it to ashes. Besides, this is far from what the demon path cultivators do. I read in a book before that some demonic path cultivators use any resource they can for cultivation, be it humans, demon beasts, or the souls of all living beings. Things like human skin books, white bone arrows, pools of blood and flesh, myriad soul banners, and even human emotions like joy, anger, and hatred can be used for cultivation." Lu Changsheng clicked his tongue in amazement. He had roughly read about the differences between the righteous path and the demonic path in books before. Although the descriptions weren't very detailed, he had a general idea. Demonic path cultivators are more extreme in their cultivation techniques and behaviors, showing less humanity for the sake of advancement. This consequently leads to some differences in the speed of cultivation and breaking through realms. But on the whole, there isn't much difference between cultivators of the righteous path and those of the demonic path. My cheap brother-in-law seems to have followed the demonic path, and I have no idea about his current situation or if he's still alive. Lu Changsheng suddenly remembered Chu Zhenchen's brother, Chu Changde. After all these years, he wondered how his cheap brother-in-law, who had entered the demonic path, was faring. After all, life wasn't easy for demonic path cultivators in Jiang country. Without further musing, Lu Changsheng began to check the storage bag. So many spirit stones, materials. Lu Changsheng immediately saw a pile of spirit stones and materials inside, and his face lit up with surprise. Even without counting in detail, he could tell at a glance that this was no small number of spirit stones. Among them were many lustrous middle-grade spirit stones. What's this? Lu Changsheng then looked at a crystal porcelain bottle. Inside was half a bottle of red crystal granules, resplendent like glazed glass. Just by the quality of the exquisite spirit bottle and the appearance of the crystals, Lu Changsheng could tell they were no mundane objects. Opening the porcelain bottle, he immediately felt an intense, scorching energy. Each grain of crystal shone with a precious light. Could this be something like the core formation spiritual object, heavenly fire glaze, as recorded in the books? If this thing really is the core formation spiritual object, heavenly fire glaze, then its value is at least 50 to 60,000 spirit stones. Lu Changsheng looked at the crystal porcelain bottle, his face filled with a smile, and he put it into his storage bag. A regular foundation establishment spiritual object might cost 2 to 3,000 spirit stones. But for a core formation spiritual object, the price increases 20-fold. And they are priceless on the market. Lu Changsheng continued his inventory. Seeing ordinary materials and magic artifacts didn't stir much emotion in him. Red Phoenix True Scripture, a peripheral sect-level cultivation technique. Seems like there's something worthwhile after all, to possess a peripheral sect-level cultivation technique. However, the technique is incomplete, only cultivable to the core formation stage, but I can study the 2 secret techniques recorded inside later. Lu Changsheng found several technique jade slips in the storage bag. After a brief glance, there were several high-grade cultivation techniques and the inheritance of 100 arts of cultivation. Only the Red Phoenix True Scripture notably piqued Lu Changsheng's interest. Is this a magic treasure embryo? Lu Changsheng saw a small black-red cauldron among the items, examining it in his hand. This small cauldron had only a rough outline of a cauldron shape. Neither the design nor the patterns were sculpted yet, resembling an unrefined embryo. But from inspecting the material of the small cauldron and the aura it emitted, even the worldly Lu Changsheng faintly sensed that this was a magic treasure. This kind of appearance made Lu Changsheng guess it was a magical treasure embryo. As far as Lu Changsheng knew, most cultivators' life-bound magic treasures are made from some rare and precious materials, which they refine themselves. They then shape it into an embryo, and gradually nurture and imbue it into a fledgling form, eventually turning it into a magic treasure. This has an advantage, as one could control the fledgling form of the magic treasure in the late stage of foundation establishment. And by nurturing the magic treasure embryo well in advance, one could let the magic treasure take shape immediately upon reaching core formation, significantly increasing its power. Could it be that this young man in the red robe is a cultivator in the late stage of foundation establishment? Otherwise, why would he have core formation spiritual objects and a magical treasure embryo? Lu Changxing glanced at the corpse that was being drained of blood by the six-winged golden silkworm and speculated. After all, how could an ordinary foundation establishment cultivator have such rare items? However, sifting through the spoils made Lu Changxing somewhat relieved. For he had also found in the red-robed young man's storage bag 6 pieces of supreme talismans of the second rank, as well as heavenly thunder pearls, white bone arrows, and other treasures. It became clear that the latter actually had quite a few trump cards. If he had made a determined attempt to take their lives from the beginning of their encounter with him and Xiao Xia, neither she nor Lu Changxing would have had the chance to retaliate. There wouldn't have been any time to employ talisman treasures to suppress him. The same principle applies, even when a lion hunts a rabbit, it uses all its strength, Lu Changxing thought to himself. Otherwise, one might capsize in the gutter unexpectedly. Chapter 291, 100,000 Spirit Stones, The Change in Xiao Xia. Lu Changxing shook his head slightly, feeling a sigh. He stored the small cauldron away and continued the cleanup. Even if the cauldron was a magical treasure embryo, it wasn't of much use to him. It was merely a piece of valuable material. Besides possibly selling it in the future, it could also be used to cultivate the 100 Refinements treasure body art. After all, a magical treasure embryo still counted as a magical treasure. It could be refined into his body. The cleaning process that followed didn't reveal any high-value items to surprise Lu Changxing. 128 middle-grade spirit stones. 3,894 lower-grade spirit stones. 1 suspected core formation spiritual object, 1 foundation establishment spiritual object. 1 magical treasure embryo, for spiritual artifacts, but one of them is worn, one is severely damaged, essentially scrapped, only suitable as waste material for the cultivation of the 100 Refinements treasure body art. 2 superior magic artifacts, 3 ultimate magic artifacts, 1 flying boat, 1 heavenly thunder pearl, 1 first-grade lifespan extension pill, plus this pile of elixir medicines, talismans, and materials. The total value is over 100,000 spirit stones, right? After clearing everything up, Lu Changxing took a deep breath while looking at this batch of spoils, and after roughly calculating their value, he exhaled long and deep. This batch of spoils was indeed the greatest haul he had ever had. The biggest gain he achieved previously was the Ko family's 5 vicious beasts, and that was just over 10,000 spirit stones when added to Meng Xiaoquan's 2 foundation establishment spiritual objects. But now, the lone red-robed youth's spoils directly approached an enormous sum of 100,000. This wealth made Lu Changxing even more aware that this person was far from ordinary. From the earlier situation, he must have been targeting Xiao Xia, seeking to capture her alive. Lu Changxing looked at the still unconscious Xiao Xia, smacking his lips. He felt the matter was far from simple. Keep in mind, Xiao Xia is a disciple of a nascent soul immortal from Qingyun sect. Now a foundation establishment great cultivator, knowing Xiao Xia's identity, still came to seize her, which made him feel the situation was complicated. Alas, the more entanglements there are, the greater the cause and effect. Lu Changxing shook his head, packed away the items, and took out 7 middle-grade spirit stones to recharge his puppet. In the recent battle, this second-rank puppet hadn't suffered any damage. But the consumption of spirit stones was vast, nearly 7 out of the 10 stones had been used up. After returning this time, if I have the time, I could also create a few more puppets, Lu Changxing thought to himself. Even the materials he had obtained were almost enough to create another second-rank puppet. But the next moment, Lu Changxing shook his head. The urgent matter at hand is cultivation, otherwise, with my current mental spirit, even if I had several puppets, I wouldn't be able to control them simultaneously. During the recent battle, Lu Changxing had also realized his shortcomings in this area. Operating a single puppet had already reached a limit during combat. If he were to control multiple puppets at the same time, it would be difficult to concentrate on other tasks. Most cultivation techniques for mental spirit require the emergence of divine sense first. It's not something that can be rushed, unless the system can draw a relevant cultivation technique for this aspect. Lu Changxing let out a sigh, grabbing 2 lower-grade spirit stones and began to sit in meditation for healing and recovery. The next day, Lu Changxing glanced at the still unconscious Xiao Xie. Seeing the effects of the healing talisman on her nearly dissipated, he took out another and used it. As the talisman flowed through Xiao Xie's body like dew from a lotus, she let out a soft moan and woke up. "Xiao Daoist, have you awoken?" Upon seeing Xiao Xie waking up, Lu Changxing immediately inquired with concern. "Lu Daoist? Where are we, and where's the robber cultivator?" Xiao Xie sat up, looked around the crude cave, and asked. She didn't know if they had escaped or if she had been imprisoned by the red-robed youth. Under the power of our 2 talisman treasures, that robber cultivator was also at his limit. I, Lu, had no choice but to play my last card and barely managed to slay him, Lu Changxing sighed, his words tinged with a mix of distress and relief. As he spoke, he returned Xiao Xie's tortoise shell, sword bead, cloud veil, and talisman treasures. He might be avaricious, but not to the extent of coveting these few things from the mother of his child. "You actually slew him?" Xiao Xie was somewhat incredulous. From their brief encounter before, she understood that the red-robed youth was not an ordinary Foundation establishment cultivator. He was at least at the middle stage of Foundation establishment. She and Lu Changxing might have suppressed him with the help of the talisman treasure. But suppression and slaying were entirely different concepts. She was stunned for a moment. Then, her somewhat pale face broke into a smile that was unlike her usual cold demeanor, blooming like a snow lotus. I didn't expect Lu Daoist to have hidden so deeply. She knew Lu Changxing had secrets. But upon seeing the second-rank puppet, talisman treasure, and Lu Changxing's cultivation level, she had already been amazed. Now, hearing that Lu Changxing had slain the red-robed youth, her view of him was completely altered. Seeing Lu Changxing slightly frown, Xiao Xie seemed to realize something. Her lips lightly pursed as she said, "Don't worry, Lu Daoist, every cultivator has their secrets. In Rui County City, you already perceived that you were different from ordinary cultivators, certainly possessing fortunate secrets. So rest assured, you can swear on my Dao heart that I will absolutely not divulge anything about Lu Daoist to anyone." Xiao Xie, being a smart person and cultivating the supreme forgetful love technique, was enlightened in her Dao heart. Having said that, she promptly swore an oath, indicating she wouldn't mention this matter to a third party. "Xiao Daoist, there's no need for such formality, the situation isn't that serious." Lu Changxing smiled, very satisfied with Xiao Xie's consideration. After all, revealing talisman treasures and cultivation levels like this was still somewhat risky. Chapter 292, 100,000 Spirit Stones, The Change in Xiao Xie. _4, reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lisi had been considering how to hint to Xiao Xie, but to his surprise, she brought it up herself. If it hadn't been for Lu Daoist, Shiyu would have been in danger this time. Previously, Lu Daoist helped Shiyu with her cultivation, and now he has risked his life to save her. Although he used his trump card to slay the robber cultivator, he must have suffered great losses himself, leaving Shiyu at a loss for how to repay him. Xiao Xie's gaze fell slightly as she spoke softly. During the battle with the robber cultivator, an inexplicable emotion had emerged in her heart. At this moment, these feelings were rapidly taking root in her heart. She did not use the supreme forgetful love technique to suppress these emotions, letting them fill her heart instead. Xiao Daoist, you are being too formal. Given the situation at the time, it would have been difficult for Lu to abandon Xiao Daoist and leave. Lu Changsheng's eyebrows raised slightly as he noticed a change in Xiao Xie's expression. Having interacted with her for such a long time, he knew that Xiao Xie's cool and ethereal demeanor would only disappear when she was cultivating. Once she stopped cultivating, she would quickly return to her usual cold and aloof appearance. But at this moment, Xiao Xie looked completely different from usual. It reminded Lu Changsheng of the lively and genuine, bright and charming Xiao Xie from 10 years ago. Furthermore, he keenly sensed that Xiao Xie was now referring to herself as Shiyu. Obviously, she felt much closer to him. He knew that experiencing life and death together, and a hero saving a beauty were things that greatly increased affections. As the words fell, Xiao Xie's delicate and incomparably beautiful face, slightly pale, took the initiative to move closer. Lu Changsheng immediately felt a warm, fragrant sweetness pass between their lips. He could smell an indescribably fresh and fragrant body scent in his nostrils. Suddenly, the two were kissing each other. This time, the fairy was very proactive. It gave Lu Changsheng a taste of something different. A moment later, Lu Changsheng let go of the warm and fragrant soft jade in his arms. After all, it wasn't good to get worked up in the wilderness. And there was still one matter to take care of. That was, the red-robed youth was clearly targeting Xiao Xie, and it remained to be seen whether they had other tricks up their sleeve to cause trouble. Xiao Daoist, that robber cultivator clearly came after you. Under such circumstances, Lu Changsheng shared his thoughts. They must be targeting me, intending to use me against my master. Xiao Xie nodded her head with a deep look in her eyes, aware of this issue as well. There's no time to delay, Shiyu will go back and report this matter to the master. The matter of cultivation can only be set aside for now. I will return to Qingzhou Mountain to find Lu Daoist after I've dealt with this. Xiao Xie pursed her lips and spoke softly. She also knew that she was in a dangerous situation at the moment. Moreover, being with Lu Changsheng not only put herself in danger but could also involve him. The next time they encountered such an incident, they might not be so lucky. All right, do you need me to send you? Lu Changsheng nodded. He felt that with the support of a backer, one should naturally turn to that support in such situations. Shiyu can go back by herself. Lu Daoist, you must be preparing for foundation establishment, right? Xiao Xie asked. I still need to polish my skills for several more years before preparing for the foundation establishment. At this time, Lu Changsheng did not conceal too much. It had been less than a year since his breakthrough to the 9th level of energy refinement, and he needed several more years of cultivating his spiritual power before he could prepare for foundation establishment. All right, once Shiyu has dealt with the matter, I will return to assist Lu Lang with his foundation establishment. Xiao Xie smiled sweetly, her enchanting voice containing a hint of sweetness. After finishing her words, she kissed Lu Changsheng again. Chapter 293, The Master and Apprentice Arrive Together. _1, Suddenly so proactive. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lise watching Xiao Xie riding away on the immortal crane, with her clothes fluttering and full of immortal aura, Lu Changsheng touched his nose. He could still faintly smell the rich fragrance at his fingertips. He could clearly feel the change in Xiao Xie after she woke up from her fainting spell. Not only was her tone and demeanor no longer cold, but she also became much more proactive. This feeling was quite pleasant. Phew, I should head back too. This trip has also shown me the gap between qi refinement and foundation establishment. I need to reach foundation establishment as soon as possible. Otherwise, without a talisman treasure or treasure bones, if I encounter another foundation building great cultivator, it would be troublesome. Lu Changsheng exhaled a long breath and rubbed his still faintly aching sternum. That strike from the treasure bones meant he would need to recuperate for a while before he could fully recover. But what exactly did Xiao Xie mean when she said she would help me with foundation establishment? Lu Changsheng thought back to Xiao Xie offering to help him with his foundation establishment. But when he asked about it, Xiao Xie remained silent and mysteriously indicated it would be a surprise for him. Lu Changxing speculated in his heart, could it be a foundation establishment elixir or perhaps some kind of secret technique that assists with foundation establishment? But I already have a foundation establishment elixir, and with my current situation, as long as I reach qi refinement perfection, I have about a 90% chance of achieving foundation establishment. How else could she help? 99%? Lu Changxing smacked his lips and didn't think further. After causing the cave to collapse and dealing with the scene, he rode the iron feather eagle and left. 2 days later, Lu Changxing safely returned to Qingzhou Mountain. His wife Lu Miaoyun, Lu Miaohuan, and several other women asked him why he had stayed in the secular world for so long. Especially Lu Miaohuan, who was now about to give birth. Seeing that Lu Changxing had not yet returned, she was so distressed that she needed a lot of comforting from him. He also explained why his trip took so long. After the gathering, a good friend was leaving the mountain to gain experience, but had nowhere to go, so he accompanied him for a while. Of course, he did not go into detail about how he provided the accompaniment. After all, discussing such matters of helping others in their cultivation with his wife felt a bit strange to Lu Changxing. Especially since the second young mistress was about to give birth. Hearing this, Lu Miaohuan and Chu Zhenjin didn't think much of it. But Lu Miaoyun felt a strange sense of oddness when she heard that the Qingyun sect disciple who accompanied her husband was a woman. She always felt that her husband's popularity with women was a bit too good. Now, whenever she saw any woman with her husband, she couldn't help but suspect something might happen. However, she didn't say anything about it. She simply suggested that Lu Changxing should cultivate a good relationship with Xiao Xie. After all, the cultivation world is also about personal connections and worldly wisdom. Being able to maintain a good relationship with an inner sect disciple of the Qingyun sect was also a good thing. Meanwhile, on the other side, Xiao Xie had also returned to the Qingyun sect. Senior Sister Xiao. Junior Sister Xiao. Senior Sister Shiyu. Along the way, many Qingyun sect disciples greeted Xiao Xie respectfully, paying respects or calling out to her. Xiao Xie was not only beautiful and talented, but she was also a disciple of the Peak Master of Kaiyun Peak, a nascent soul immortal. Thus, she had a wide reputation within the Qingyun sect. She was the goddess in many disciples' hearts and was well liked. However, Xiao Xie was also known for her aloof and cold demeanor. Many talented disciples of the Qingyun sect sought her, but all were met with rejection. Xiao Xie, with her cool and indifferent demeanor, was like the distant moon high above, unapproachable. But she still retained her previous habit of responding simply to others' greetings. This was another reason many disciples liked her. Xiao Xie did not delay much, and upon entering the Qingyun sect, she flew swiftly towards Kaiyun Peak on her Cloud Veil magic artifact. Arriving at the palace halls at the peak, she stood before a grand hall. Master. Xiao Xie paid her respects in front of the great hall. The doors opened with a bang. Shiyu, why have you returned? Has something happened? Yun Wanshang's voice arose. She knew that Xiao Xie's trip down the mountain for her cultivation experience was to experience the trial of love and to find an opportunity for a breakthrough. Thus, without anything major, she would not return so soon. But now Xiao Xie had come back so quickly, and with her aura somewhat disordered, it made her realize that something must have happened. Reporting to Master, Xiao Xie walked into the great hall and related the encounter with the youth in red. However, she chose to conceal specific details. She changed the account of killing into escaping. After all, Qi refinement cultivators slaying a foundation-building great cultivator was truly astonishing. Especially since the red-robed youth was not a regular foundation establishment cultivator, her master might even know him. Yun Wanshang's brow furrowed sharply as she listened, and a chill enveloped her heavenly features. She had suspected that someone was intentionally meddling when Xiao Xie had been attacked by Red Luan, the old demon, on her way back with the purple spirit liquid. Now that her disciple, Xiao Xie, had been targeted so soon after leaving for her cultivation experience, and the attacker was targeting Xiao Xie and knew Yun Wanshang. It confirmed her suspicion that someone was targeting her from the shadows. This led her to believe that this person was very likely within the Qingyun sect itself. "Shiyu, don't worry, leave this matter to me to handle," said Yun Wanshang, suppressing the anger in her heart. "Yes, master," responded Xiao Xie with a nod. Then her mouth curved slightly as she said, "Master, I have found the opportunity for a breakthrough on this trip down the mountain." "What?" Yun Wanshang was taken aback, somewhat astonished. She hadn't expected that Xiao Xie would find her breakthrough opportunity just a little over a month since she had descended the mountain. She knew that the trial of the Supreme Forgetful Love technique was not easy to overcome. Especially since others who practiced this technique usually experienced the trial of love at the beginning, amidst the turmoil of the world, before they continued with their cultivation. Chapter 294, The Master and Apprentice Arrive Together. Because of the red dust elixir, Xiao Xie had first cultivated the Supreme Forgetful Love technique. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, least now, even if she were to experience the trials of love again, it would be more difficult for her than for ordinary people. Because the Supreme Forgetful Love technique allowed Xiao Xie to remain unfettered and undisturbed by emotions, she found it extremely difficult to be moved by them. She locked gazes with the calm eyes of Xiao Xie. A moment later, Yun Wanshang spoke, "Shiyu, are you sure about this? Love is unfathomable, unknowable in its beginning, resting place, bond, solution, track, or end, which makes this love calamity not so easy to overcome. You invest deep feelings, yet you are naive about love, likely to become deeply entrapped." Yun Wanshang voiced such words. Love is unknowable in its origin, indescribable, beyond words. This was her own realization. Now that her disciple was cultivating the Supreme Forgetful Love technique and wished to transcend the love trial, it inevitably worried her as a master. Initially, under Xiao Xie's persistence, she had agreed to a period of 3 years, secretly hoping that Xiao Xie would give up. "Master, Shiyu has made up her mind." Xiao Xie's eyes were as clear as autumn waters under the moonlight, and she spoke softly. Her voice was calm, yet resolute. In these days, she had come to understand the nature of emotions and the meaning behind the Supreme Forgetful Love. But her heart, set on pursuing the Tao and content with dying in the evening after hearing it in the morning, had not a single thought of surrender. "It seems you have made up your mind. I won't dissuade you any further," said the master. Yun Wanshang looked at Xiao Xie and sighed softly. She knew that once her disciple made a decision, she would not easily change her mind. At the same time, she felt a tremendous sense of relief. She was heartened to see such a strong commitment to the Tao in her disciple. After all, cultivation isn't just about innate talent. It's also about a person's character, temperament, mindset, and understanding, among other things. She had taken on Xiao Xie as a disciple, not just for her talent but also for her temperament and comprehension. Since Xiao Xie spoke in such a manner, she chose to believe in her disciple. To believe she could pierce through the false and truly cultivate the Supreme Forgetful Love. "You've spoken of this matter, but is there something else you wish to tell your master?" Yun Wanshang's face broke into a smile, and she reached out to touch Xiao Xie's head. She sensed that the other had more to say. "Master, the opportunity for my breakthrough lies in an old friend of mine, and it was thanks to his help that Shiyu was able to escape, so Shiyu wishes to request Master to refine a Golden Crow elixir." Xiao Xie pursed her lips and spoke. Golden Crow elixir. Yun Wanshang's gaze sharpened upon hearing this. She immediately guessed what her disciple wanted to do. Golden Crow elixir, second-rank top-grade elixir medicines. Containing a strand of great sun essence. Immensely beneficial for those with yang constitutions in their cultivation. And this Golden Crow elixir has another effect: the essence within, coupled with Xiao Xie's moonlight spirit body, could enhance each other's effect. If it is used during foundation establishment, there's a chance to build the Sun Moon Tao foundation. However, to reach this step, one must engage in dual cultivation with a partner. Please grant me this, master, Xiao Xie said as she knelt before her silent master. Oh, my foolish child, Yun Wanshang sighed. She helped Xiao Xie up and said, the person owes you a debt of enlightenment and has also saved your life. Naturally, you must repay this kindness. But afterwards, can you truly break through all this? Yun Wanshang questioned. To forget with the supreme forgetful love technique, one must experience the trial of love. The deeper the love trial, the better the effect after shattering illusions. But Xiao Xie's situation also made her worry that her disciple might get lost in it. Master, I can, Xiao Xie assured, her cool and detached face showing a gentle smile. All right, you should go back and rest. I will ask Elder Yun to refine the elixir, and he'll inform you once it is ready. Yun Wanshang touched Xiao Xie's head again, her voice tinged with pity. In this era, the status of a master-disciple relationship was extraordinary. She regarded Xiao Xie almost as her own daughter. Seeing Xiao Xie like this naturally left her feeling incredibly complex. Yes, master, she will take her leave now, Xiao Xie bowed and withdrew. After Xiao Xie left the hall, Yun Wanshang's expression turned indifferent. Then she transformed into a rainbow light and arrived at Qiyang Peak, a majestic golden magical sword appearing in her hand. Boom! With magical sword in hand, Yun Wanshang slashed fiercely towards the peak's palace. Countless golden runes flashed, causing a golden divine thunder to strike down from the clear skies, alongside her sword. Yun Wanshang, what are you doing? Inside Qiyang Peak, an authoritative and resounding voice spoke out. 9 red fire dragons soared into the sky, forming a barrier to block the sword. What's going on? It's the Kaiyun Peak Master. What is the Kaiyun Peak Master doing, suddenly attacking our Qiyang Peak? Many disciples of Qiyang Peak suddenly looked up, staring in shock and confusion at the scene unfolding before them. Song Qingji, show yourself. Chapter 295, The Master and Apprentice arrive together. And at this moment, another divine rainbow flew in, landing on Qiyang Peak and looking towards the 2 nascent soul immortals. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, least seeing the newcomer, Yun Wanshang also sheathed her magical sword. Looking at Qiyang Immortal, she said coldly, whether it is or not, Brother Qiyang, you could ask Song Qingji. If my disciple encounters any more accidents, then this matter cannot be separated from you and your Qiyang Peak. When that happens, don't blame me for being impolite. After Yun Wanshang had finished speaking, she turned and left without looking back, transforming into a rainbow light and returning to Kaiyun Peak. Leaving behind the disciples of Qiyang Peak somewhat dumbfounded. Although among them, some had heard about the grudge between their peak's master's wife and the master of Kaiyun Peak. But that was just what they had heard, rumors. Today's incident let them know that these rumors were true. However, they dared not discuss such matters. Qiang junior brother, you also know Kaiyun's temperament. You can also ask junior sister Song about this. If it has nothing to do with junior sister Song, then just clear things up with her when the time comes, said the Qingyun sect leader after seeing Yun Wanshang depart. Sect leader brother, how could Qingji possibly do such a thing, and moreover, Qingji has been in seclusion these past few days, said Qiang Immortal, cupping his hands. That's good then, replied the Qingyun sect leader, not saying more. He transformed into a divine rainbow and departed. Straight away, Qiang Immortal's face turned somewhat somber as he approached a grand and luxurious hall. Inside the hall, on the bed, lay a woman around 30, her black silky hair coiled into a bun, wearing a green Taoist robe, lying on her side while holding an ancient scroll. Qingji, has the matter regarding Yun Wanshang's disciple anything to do with you? Qiang Immortal asked the woman on the bed, speaking gravely. Could it be that, in your heart, I would do such a thing? The woman in green put down the scroll and sat up slightly, looking at her Tao companion. I hope not, the Qiang Immortal sighed helplessly as he looked at his Tao companion's expression. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. Since returning to Qingzhou Mountain, Lu Changxing had kept a low profile. Other than 2 trips to the Red Leaf Valley Market, he seldom left the house. He focused on his cultivation, talisman making, and spending time with his wives. Half a month after returning, the second mistress gave birth to her second child. It was a boy. Fortunately, the child also possessed a spiritual root. But not as good as Lu Qingshan. It was only a 7th grade spiritual root. Nevertheless, Lu Changxing felt very satisfied. He could not help but wonder if the reason Lu Miaohuan's children had spiritual roots both times was related to her consistently good nutrition. After all, there were such mystical sayings in the cultivation world. And during Lu Miaohuan's pregnancy, Lu Yuanding always provided various nutritious supplements. One day, in the practice room. Lu Changxing sat cross-legged, exhaling lightly as he looked at the black-red small cauldron floating in front of him. This black-red small cauldron was the magic artifact embryo he had acquired from the red-robed youth. Although this magic artifact embryo was precious and worth quite a bit of money, he found selling it troublesome and preferred to use it to enhance his strength. Thus, he had spent the time he would have used to refine the 9-treasured jade rui on this magic artifact embryo. Now, at last, the refinement was complete, and it could be condensed into his body. I will condense this magic artifact embryo into the bones of my hand, Lu Changxing decided as he looked at his right hand, already having chosen the spot for condensation. After all, the skull and spine were relatively dangerous and problematic, not to be considered for the moment, and with the black dragon magical bead in his sternum, only the limbs were left to choose from. Sihish. Without further thought, Lu Changxing activated the 100 Refinements treasure body art, causing treasure light to flow through his palm, as if staining it gold. Under the concentration of spiritual power, the black-red small cauldron began to integrate bit by bit with his palm. Just like that, time trickled by, and the entire small cauldron completely integrated into Lu Changxing's palm, solidifying within his hand bones. On the back of his hand, the pattern of a small cauldron emerged. At the same time, a mighty and overwhelming power began to wash over Lu Changxing's flesh, meridians, and bones. This allowed Lu Changxing's nearly breakthrough 100 Refinements treasure body art to immediately advance under the force of this magic artifact embryo. Boom boom boom. Sounds reminiscent of mighty rivers surging and rushing echoed within Lu Changxing. The noise grew clearer and more resonant, resembling a divine blacksmith forging a powerful weapon, strong and sonorous. Lu Changxing's physique shone brighter and brighter, as if a layer of golden film were flowing over his skin, bursting forth with a dazzling radiance like a blood rainbow. After a long while, the divine light within Lu Changxing's body gradually receded, revealing his flawless and robust muscular frame. 100 Refinements treasure body art, 3rd level. Lu Changxing felt the immense power within him, his lips curved upwards in a smile. Just as I suspected, integrating the second magic artifact into my body was less effective, which is likely because it's only a magic artifact embryo. However, it's still quite good. With the black dragon magical bead and this magic artifact embryo constantly nurturing and refining my body, I estimate that within 10 years, my 100 Refinements treasure body art will break through to the 4th level. Moreover, once I have finished refining the 9-treasured jade rui, this speed will increase even further. Lu Changxing's face was filled with joy as he looked at the small cauldron pattern on his hand. With a slight movement of his mental spirit, the pattern vanished from sight. He then took out his green-faced sword from his storage bag and lightly slashed his arm with it twice. Seeing no effect, he chopped with more force, another 2 times. Noticing only faint white marks and red welts, Lu Changxing couldn't help but nod in satisfaction. My physical body is comparable to a high-grade magic artifact. With my physical strength alone, I can now easily slay energy refinement middle-stage cultivators, and even some in the late stage, right? Lu Changxing stored away the green-faced sword, quite pleased with his physical condition. He knew his fist was strong enough to clash head-on with middle-grade magic artifacts. As for high-grade magic artifacts, Lu Changxing believed there was no need. After all, harming one's own flesh and blood was truly inadvisable. And he had cultivated the 100 Refinements treasure body art for many years but had never used it to directly confront others, treating it more like physical training. It's been so long, I wonder how Xiao Xie is doing now. Lu Changxing couldn't help but think of Xiao Xie. After all, she had said that after resolving her matters at Qingyun's sect, she would return to cultivate with him. 3 months had passed by now. Meanwhile, at Qingyun's sect, Shiyu, this is the Golden Crow elixir. Yun Wanshang handed a porcelain bottle to Xiao Xie. Thank you, master. Upon hearing this, Xiao Xie revealed a hint of joy. She then opened the bottle and glanced inside. Immediately, she saw a dazzling elixir that looked like a flame alight. It was the Golden Crow elixir indeed. When do you plan to descend the mountain? Yun Wanshang inquired. She knew that Xiao Xie had stayed on Kaiyun Peak all these days, waiting for the Golden Crow elixir to be ready. Master, I plan to leave the mountain today. Xiao Xie pressed her lips together, her cool and aloof expression softening a little. Good, if you encounter any emergencies, send word to your master immediately. Yun Wanshang sighed softly as she looked at her disciple's demeanor. Yes, master. Xiao Xie's face broke into a slight smile. She then bowed deeply and walked out of the grand hall, taking flight on her Cloud Veil magic artifact and leaving Qingyun's sect. Next, she rode a white crane, heading towards Qingzhou Mountain. Not long after Xiao Xie left, Yun Wanshang stood quietly by the railing of her palace. Her heart couldn't help but worry about Xiao Xie. After all, the matter of the emotional tribulation greatly concerned her disciple's future and commanded her attention. Soon after, Yun Wanshang gazed in the direction Xiao Xie had gone and transformed into a rainbow of light that also departed from Qingyun's sect. Chapter 296, Yun Wanshang, How Could It Be Him? _1 Red Leaf Valley Market. Reading Omicron N Novel Cool. Omicron M, least the streets were sparsely populated with pedestrians, hardly bustling with activity. Lu Changxing carried his daughter Lu Qingzhu while strolling through the market with his wife, Lu Miaoge. Little Bamboo, do you like this? Lu Miaoge, her hair piled up high, her features delicate and gentle, held up a small toy to ask her daughter. Oh. Lu Qingzhu gave it a few glances before responding. It seems you don't like it. Lu Changxing, observing his daughter's reaction, said with a smile. The little girl was already 2 years old. She was as cute as a button, extremely adorable. It's just that she had a somewhat simple and straightforward personality. She was not fussy or noisy, quiet, and well-behaved. Even when Lu Changxing pinched her lightly for no reason, she would just look up at him, her father, with a wronged expression. She was entirely different from the mischievous and active Lu Qingshan. Isn't that Miss Lu Miaoge? Your child has grown so big already. No wonder Mr. Lu, the talisman master, is so devoted to the Lu family. It seems your family's investments are quite substantial. At this moment, a group of men and women approached from not far away. One of the young men in blue robes, upon seeing Lu Changxing and Lu Miaoge, had a smirk and spoke teasingly. Third young master, you, are we that familiar with you? Lu Changxing turned his head, his expression impassive, and spoke indifferently. This young man in blue robes was none other than Yuning Yuan, the third young master of the Yu family, who had once tried to recruit him at the Nine Dragons Market. As for the third young master of the Yu family, he had no favorable impression of him. Or rather, he had no favorable impression of the entire Yu family. After all, based on his conjecture, the assaults on Lu Miaoge and himself during his return trip were very likely orchestrated by the Yu family. When the third young master of the Yu family had come to the Nine Dragons Market to recruit him, the incident might have been related to them. All these matters were engraved in his memory. Once his strength was sufficient, he would settle these accounts. Humph. Yuning Yuan saw that Lu Changxing gave him no regard and his expression darkened. But he did nothing more than give a cold snort. After all, the Red Leaf Valley Market was considered his family's marketplace. It was still in its initial phase of development. He wouldn't start a conflict within the market and risk tarnishing its reputation. Otherwise, faced with Lu Changsheng's slight, he would not have let it go so easily. Lu Changsheng, after Yuning Yuan left, he glanced back at Lu Changsheng once more. He knew in his heart that Lu Changsheng was no simple character. The man had saved Lu Miaoge before, and he had come out unscathed after the assassination attempts he had ordered. During the battle between the Lu and Bai families that led to the downfall of Red Leaf Valley, Changsheng played a significant role. He was aware that the latter was not someone easy to handle. Changsheng, you should still be careful with the Yu family, Lu Miaoge said softly to Lu Changsheng. Although the Lu, Bai, Zheng, and Yu families had collaborated to establish the Red Leaf Valley market, the relations among these four families had not significantly improved. After all, the incident in Red Leaf Valley had been quite unpleasant. Sister Miaoge, I know, Lu Changsheng nodded in response. He was now a core member of the Lu family and was privy to some of the intricacies involved. After continuing their shopping for a while, the couple headed back to the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop with their daughter. As for Lu Changsheng's own Peace Talisman Hall, he would stop by monthly to check the accounts and replenish talismans. If he was too busy, he would let Lu Miaoge help out. Mainly because the foot traffic in Red Leaf Valley Market was still rather average. The monthly income primarily depended on his few supreme talismans, and there was not much to look into. Little Bamboo, haven't you fallen asleep yet? Upon returning to the third floor of the spiritual talisman shop, Lu Changsheng, thinking his daughter had fallen asleep in his arms, looked down to find a pair of bright eyes gazing back. Daddy, I'm not sleepy, Lu Qingzhu said in her baby voice. The little head nestled in Lu Changsheng's arms, and her tender face gently rubbed against him. Are you hungry, then? Looking at his daughter's adorable manner, Lu Changsheng felt immense satisfaction and love, giving her milky cheek a playful nibble. Oh. The little girl pondered briefly and then nodded with her lips pursed. You're hungry and you don't say it yourself, you little simpleton, Lu Changsheng chuckled as he heard her. He immediately took out a milk bottle and a jade bottle from the storage bag. They contained spiritual dew, spiritual honey, and milk from spiritual beasts. As a father to over 100 children, he had long acquired a storage bag specifically for storing food for the kids. After mixing the milk, Lu Changsheng skillfully fed his child. Children of this age could already hold the milk bottle by themselves. Lu Miaoge, watching Lu Changsheng feed their child, lingered with a gentle expression for a moment before heading to the talisman room to make talismans. She had successfully created a supreme talisman last year. But her success rate remained low. Creating supreme talismans was still a losing business. Lu Changsheng naturally provided guidance in talisman crafting as well, but the effectiveness of such teachings was limited. It still depended on the individual. This made Lu Changsheng realize that teaching the children talisman making and puppetry would be somewhat difficult. You could invest heavily in the early stages, but without natural talent in these areas, it was hard to cultivate skills. As Lu Changsheng watched his daughter quietly drinking milk, he suddenly sensed something. He took out a talisman from his storage bag. Faint spiritual light flowed across the surface of the talisman. Shiyu has arrived at the Red Leaf Valley Market, he noted. This was a sensing talisman. Whenever a corresponding communication talisman was activated, the sensing talisman would perceive it. However, this was only a first-grade sensing talisman. Its range of sensing was limited. Therefore, Lu Changsheng immediately knew that Xiao Xia had come to the Red Leaf Valley Market. Right away, he went to the talisman room, informed Lu Miaoge, who was making talismans, that he needed to step out, then carried his daughter toward the entrance of the Red Leaf Valley Market. A quarter of an hour later, Lu Changsheng arrived at the market exit. He immediately saw Xiao Xia not far away, clad in a white dress, her tall and graceful figure exuding a cold and lofty air. Chapter 297, Yun Wanshang, How Could It Be Him? Shiyu. Reading Omicron N Novel Cool. Lise Lu Changxing stepped forward, calling out to Xiao Xie. When they had parted last, Xiao Xie had suggested they address each other as fellow Taoists, creating a sense of estrangement. Therefore, it was only natural that their form of address had changed. Changxing. Upon seeing Lu Changxing, Xiao Xie, with her cold, proud features, immediately revealed a gentle look in her calm and indifferent beautiful eyes, and the corners of her mouth also curled up. Is this also your daughter? Xiao Xie, seeing the baby bottle in the arms of Lu Changxing who was holding Lu Qingzhu, asked. She knew that Lu Changxing had many wives and children. But she hadn't expected that Lu Changxing would come to the marketplace while also holding a child. It left her really not knowing what to say. She could only say that Lu Changxing truly liked children. Yes, this is my daughter Lu Qingzhu. Little Zhuer, this is your auntie Xiyu. Lu Changxing introduced them to each other with a candid expression. Hee, auntie. The little girl, clutching her baby bottle, paused, then spoke in a babyish voice. In Qingzhu Mountain, with so many lady mothers, she had learned to call out a bit. But her pronunciation was still not clear. Ah, what a cutie. Xiao Xie looked at the little girl drinking her milk and showed a faint smile on her face. One reason was that the child was indeed adorable. The other was love for the house and its crow. Straight away, the two of them walked into the Red Leaf Valley marketplace, laughing and talking. However, as the two chatted, is it him? A hidden figure, camouflaged in the void, upon seeing Lu Changxing, revealed expressions of shock, astonishment, embarrassment, anger, and disbelief in her dreamlike beautiful eyes. It was like when Duan Yu learned that the person he loved, unexpectedly, was his own half-sister from the same father but different mothers. But in the end, he was not the child of his biological father, instead born from his mother's secret affair. Shiyu's destined lover in her emotional tribulation, how could it be him? Yun Wanshang stood quietly in mid-air, wearing a colorful dress, her expression incredibly shocked, her feelings indescribably complex. Her heart felt as if a bottle of mixed emotions had been overturned. After Xiao Xie had left, she had been somewhat worried about her. She also wanted to see for herself the person her pupil had chosen for her emotional tribulation. After all, this tribulation could significantly influence her disciple's future. As a teacher, she naturally had to take a good care of her. Therefore, she had followed Xiao Xie all the way here, ready to keep an eye on things. Chapter 298, Yun Wanshang, how could it be him? So just now, she hadn't paid attention to Lu Changsheng's cultivation level. Reading N novel cool. Lise also, because various emotions pervaded her heart and assailed her mind, she forgot about it for the time being. Now that she thought of it, a few traces of surprise and doubt appeared in her heart. Watching the almost departing pair, she quickly followed. Then, she looked toward Lu Changxing, her eyes shining brightly, as if starry rivers flowed within them, suffused with the light of dawn. 9th level energy refinement. Moreover, the spiritual power aura throughout his body is majestic, faintly exuding a sharp and overbearing presence. The vitality of his physical body is also extremely vigorous, like a demon beast. This. Yun Wanshang used a technique and immediately discerned Lu Changsheng's cultivation level. She couldn't help but feel a wave of shock. It's only been 8 years, right? An 8th grade spiritual root, breaking through from the peak of the 6th level energy refinement to the 9th level energy refinement in 8 years. This speed is barely acceptable, but his entire cultivation, not only is his spiritual power robust, but it also clearly shows signs of magical dual cultivation. Yun Wanshang's eyes were full of surprise and disbelief. If this situation were applied to the talented disciples of Qingyun sect, it would be completely normal. But on Lu Changxing, it seemed somewhat inconceivable. Huff. Yun Wanshang watched Lu Changxing, making sure she wasn't mistaken, before exhaling deeply. As a nascent soul immortal, she typically remained unmoved even if Mount Tai were crumbling before her. Even when she learned about Xiao Xia's matters, her eyebrows only slightly furrowed, her expression turning cold. But today, having seen Lu Changxing, her expression changed dramatically twice in a short period, stirring thousands of waves in her heart. While Yun Wanshang was observing Lu Changxing's condition, Lu Changxing also had a prickling feeling as if ants were crawling on his back. Suddenly, he turned his head, then scanned his surroundings. But there were only a few pedestrians scattered around. Nothing was amiss. However, Lu Changxing trusted his intuition. He knew that this faint feeling, akin to thorns pricking at his back, must be due to someone observing him. Otherwise, without reason, he would not have this sensation. Could it be the patriarch of the Yu family? Because of the previous incident involving the third young master of the Yu family, Lu Changxing couldn't help but suspect the Yu family. He remembered that the patriarch of the Yu family was currently stationed within the marketplace. But he felt that was unlikely. Why would the other party observe him for no reason? Moreover, he had been in the Red Leaf Valley market for quite some time. If the patriarch really wanted to observe him, he would have done so already, not wait until now. He then looked at Xiao Xia, wondering if someone had set their sights on Xiao Xia again. Changxing, what's wrong? Xiao Xia also noticed that Lu Changxing seemed out of sorts and inquired. I just had a faint feeling that someone is secretly observing me. Xiu, did you encounter anything on the way here? Lu Changxing stopped looking around, maintained his composure, and spoke through a voice transmission. Changxing, are you saying someone is following me? I haven't noticed anything unusual on my way here. Upon hearing this, Xiao Xia quickly grasped the meaning behind Lu Changxing's words and became alert, scanning her surroundings. Is that so? Lu Changxing took a deep breath. He knew that Xiao Xia practiced the supreme forgetful love technique. In terms of spiritual sense, she was even more sensitive than himself. Since Xiao Xia hadn't noticed anything unusual, it suggested that the person was unrelated to Xiao Xia, or perhaps the observer's cultivation level was so profound that Xiao Xia didn't perceive it at all during her journey. Changxing, let's meet up later. At that moment, Xiao Xia paused as if she'd come to a realization, pursed her lips, and spoke. She then headed towards the direction of the market's exit. Lu Changxing saw Xiao Xia suddenly leave and was uncertain of her meaning, but quickly guessed that Xiao Xia must have realized something. All right, I will also take the child back. Lu Changxing nodded in acknowledgement and spoke aloud. He prepared to send his daughter home first to have Lu Miaoge look after her, for it would be inconvenient to handle any unexpected events while holding the child. Quite sharp and vigilant. It seems Shiyu has also guessed it's me. Hidden at the side of the street, Yun Wanshang, with her figure concealed, watched the two separate, her expression returning to calm. She knew her actions had made Lu Changxing wary, causing Xiao Xia to guess that the person watching them covertly was herself. Shiyu, it's your master. To avoid causing her disciple any fear, Yun Wanshang didn't hide it and directly transmitted her voice to her disciple. Master, why have you come? Xiao Xia, hearing her master's voice, also let out a sigh of relief and spoke softly, almost as if talking to herself. But Yun Wanshang could clearly hear her voice. She spoke frankly, your earlier adventures led you into danger, and the matter of the trial by love is of great importance. I'm concerned about you, hence I came to have a look. Thank you, master. Xiao Xia nodded gently, understanding her master's deep concern. Find a place, your master has questions for you. Yun Wanshang continued to communicate telepathically. Yes, master. If you're not occupied with anything, just consume the golden crow elixir now. It'll protect you while you assimilate it, Xiao Xie continued. Okay, Lu Changxing responded, nodding, his expression turning serious. He set down the warm, fragrant soft jade from his arms and swallowed the golden crow elixir. As soon as the elixir went down, Lu Changxing instantly felt a massive and pure force spreading throughout his body, warm and very comfortable, but before he could enjoy it, boom! It was as if a great sun had exploded in his lower abdomen, turning into rolling flames, engulfing his whole body, burning his limbs and bones. Hot, hot, hot. Lu Changxing felt blazing hot, as if he was on fire. On his flesh and muscles, golden flames started to ignite. Changxing, circulate your energy, Xiao Xie's voice rang out. Then, her lips, soft as clouds, landed on Lu Changxing's, and at the moment he felt their warm softness, a profound and icy energy, through her red lips, slowly flowed into him. Yin and yang, merged as one. Lu Changxing, seeing Xiao Xie looking like this, knew it was due to helping him refine the elixir. He held her hand, expressing his gratitude. He then inquired, Xiu, why is there a small golden crow roaming about in my Dan lake? That is the most precious great sun essence of the golden crow elixir. When you break through to foundation establishment, this strand of great sun essence will solidify your base, ensuring you can gather an unblemished Dao foundation, and you might even have the chance to coalesce a great Sun Dao foundation. However, the foundation of your spiritual power is several times more robust than I expected. Even without this strand of great Sun essence, you'd be able to form a perfect foundation base on your own. Xiao Xie explained aloud. A perfect foundation base, a great Sun Dao foundation? Xiu, does foundation establishment also have various levels? Lu Changxing, upon hearing this, was somewhat surprised. He knew that once one's spiritual power was well-rounded and satisfactory after achieving qi refinement perfection, one could prepare for foundation establishment. Break through the 3 barriers of foundation establishment, transform the Dan lake into a true sea, raise a Dao platform, shed the mortal body, and build a Dao foundation, becoming a foundation establishment great cultivator. He cultivated in the 7 luminaries great freedom sword scripture, and after breaking through foundation establishment, a Dao platform constructed by the 7 luminaries' spiritual power would be raised in the Dan lake. This Dao platform was also known as the 7 luminaries Dao platform. But now, from Xiao Xie's words, it seemed that there were indeed varying levels of Dao foundations. You don't know, Changxing? Xiao Xie, on hearing this, looked somewhat surprised. But then she remembered the Lu family Lu Changxing belonged to was only a foundation establishment family. And since Lu Changxing had always been humble about his cultivation level, it was normal for him to not have come across this information. She proceeded to explain to Lu Changxing, yes, when you strike for foundation establishment, after you break through the 3 barriers, a Dao platform rises from the Dan lake. The platform radiates bright light, circulates throughout the body, sheds the mortal form. This is foundation establishment. But depending on the different cultivation techniques, one's own foundation, the resulting Dao platform also has levels of superiority and inferiority. If one is old, with declining vitality and blood, a baseless foundation, or if the divine sense is weak, even if they pass the 3 foundation establishment barriers and succeed, the raised Dao platform will have flaws and cracks. Such a foundation establishment is called a flawed Dao foundation, or even a shattered Dao foundation. How to select the foundation establishment spirit objects most compatible with oneself. In addition to the perfect foundation under the compatibility of one's cultivation technique, there are also the Great Sun Dao Foundation, Taiyin Dao Foundation, Gung Metal Dao Foundation, 5 Elements Dao Foundation, 3 Flowers Gathered Atop Dao Foundation, 5 Qi Towards Yuan Dao Foundation. Learning all this information about foundation establishment made Lu Changxing widen his eyes. He couldn't help feeling amazed that even something as simple as foundation establishment had so many intricacies involved. No wonder countless loose cultivators would join a force in exchange for just a bit of insight into foundation establishment, essentially risking their lives for it. Because this knowledge is indeed important. It's greatly helpful for an ordinary cultivator's foundation establishment. And ordinary loose cultivators simply couldn't access this kind of information and had no choice but to commit themselves to a power. If I demonstrated the strength of a cultivator at the peak of chi refinement, the Lu family would also give me such insights into foundation establishment. But the understanding and insights of foundation establishment from the Lu family are definitely not as profound as Xiao Xi's, Lu Changsheng reflected inwardly. He realized once again at this moment the benefits of joining a major force. But the fact that Xiao Xie knew so much was also because behind her stood Qingyun sect, one of the 4 great immortal sects of Jiang country, and she had a nascent soul mentor. Otherwise, an ordinary disciple from an immortal sect wouldn't necessarily know so much. Shiyu, these are the foundation establishment spirit objects I have prepared for myself. Which do you think are suitable for me? At this time, Lu Changsheng took out 5 foundation establishment spirit objects from his storage bag. Since he was going to aim for perfect foundation establishment, he naturally wanted to lay the most solid groundwork possible. Although Xiao Xie had told him a lot just now, he still wasn't clear on how to choose the right spirit objects for foundation establishment. This is Blood Yang Fruit, Blood Lingji, Profound Yin True Water, Heavenly Heart Lotus, Jade Soul Flower. Xiao Xie looked at the 5 foundation establishment spirit objects that Lu Changsheng had taken out all at once and felt somewhat stunned. Although she was a disciple of a nascent soul immortal, she was not oblivious to the harshness of cultivation. She knew the difficulties of cultivation, and that foundation establishment spirit objects were very precious. An ordinary cultivator would be lucky to find a single one when establishing their foundation. But now, Lu Changsheng had actually produced 5 at once. And she could tell that Lu Changsheng's physical body, blood essence, and mana were incredibly robust. He could completely do without the assistance of foundation establishment spirit objects. At most, he would need one to assist with the divine sense during foundation establishment. Changsheng, with your robust body, vigorous blood essence, and powerful spiritual energy, you have no need for foundation establishment spirit objects to assist you. Using foundation establishment spirit objects might actually affect your blood essence and the purity of your magic aura. For the divine sense barrier, you could use the Heavenly Heart Lotus as an aid. Moreover, I have a secret technique that can assist you during your foundation establishment, so you don't need to rely on these spirit objects. However, this Jade Soul Flower has a warming effect on the mental spirit, so you can use it now to nurture your mental spirit, which might enable you to directly produce divine sense. Xiao Xie spoke, saying this. Although it said one's mental spirit evolves and divine sense is born only upon foundation establishment, this doesn't mean it's impossible to develop divine sense during the chi refinement realm. Secret technique? What secret technique? Lu Changsheng's eyebrows rose upon hearing this. He hadn't expected that, aside from the Golden Crow elixir, Xiao Xie also had a secret technique to assist his foundation establishment. This was akin to having his meal spoon-fed to him. It was as if she was really worried that his foundation establishment would fail or be suboptimal. But the more Xiao Xie did this, the more Lu Changsheng felt she did not want to be indebted to him. She seemed intent on paying back her debt for the cultivation assistance and life-saving grace through these means. You'll know when the time comes, Xiao Xie pursed her lips and didn't reveal the technique. After all, she was aware that the method wasn't really a secret technique. Lu Changsheng, hearing this, did not fixate on the secret technique any further. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.